Well, there goes the Daverhood. Good morning, everybody, and welcome on this Saturday. It is February 22nd, 2020, and we're in our bright and spangly second act edition of Dave's Gone By. I don't mean that. What I mean is like when you have musical reviews back in the day, and we haven't had one of these truly on Broadway in a lot of years now. Just occurs to me. I guess we still get them off Broadway. Now Broadway has these big jukebox musicals that are trying to be Broadway shows in themselves, even though they don't have new scores. They use songs from the canon of, The Temptations or Carole King or Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. So it isn't just this plain old review where these actors and actresses come out and they sing songs for about an hour, and then they come back out and sing songs for another 45 minutes, which is sort of the old style of things. But what they would do is there would be a little more casual in Act One, and they sing songs and get everybody into it. And then what would they do? In the second act, they'd come out in black and white, in tuxes, right? And the women in more fancy dresses. And sort of like, ooh, we're more serious now. We've gotten through the initial gentle stages of what we're doing. Now we get into the serious Broadway version of our show. Now we've saved some of the best songs for last and the encores too. And then also we're more hoity-toity now. I don't know, it's sort of a night and day or day and night thing. Like they start in daytime and then the show after the intermission progresses to a more classy nighttime vibe. But we're starting with that. We're starting, you can see that the classiness here of what my wife Joyce said is either Apollonian, or Disco Queen. I'm not not exactly sure what this represents, but I'm going for the black and white spangly look of Broadway, or some kind of Broadway, and cabaret and nightclubs too, because we're going to have a lot of theater and musical theater related stuff on this episode of Dave's Gone By. Reason being, we're very excited about the guest that we're going to have coming up in the Daverhood in about an hour or two. He's coming later in the program, but we're very excited. This is someone that I have known for, oh my gosh, 25, maybe 30 years. He and his wife have been reviewing theater, and that's what I've known them for. I've known them as being a member of the drama desk, and I believe they're in the Outer Critics Circle too, and they write reviews, and they used to write tag team reviews and things like that. I had no idea that they've also written dozens of books, some about the entertainment industry, also a lot of science fiction and young adult kind of science fiction too. And what I did know is that over the past decade or so, this fella, his name is Scott Siegel, has been doing a bunch of different cabaret evenings, but it's not that typical thing of, well, someone has a cabaret act, they rehearse a few songs, they get a pianist together, they go up on Don't Tell Mama or the Duplex or Feinstein's 54 Below, Green Room 42, all these places in Manhattan, not all the few places in Manhattan where you can still see old-fashioned cabaret. He doesn't really perform that way. What he does is he gathers other people, super talented people, to do it. And he created this idea called Broadway by the Year, which has become one of the most popular concert attractions in New York over the past few years. I'll tell you more about it. I'll tell you more about Scott Siegel, but he is, as I said, he's a writer, critic, and impresario, because he created this thing that has just taken off. And they do it, I think, 3 or 4 times a year. Now they're doing it in Town Hall, which seats about, 11 to 1,400 people. It's as big as a Broadway, as some of the biggest Broadway theaters. And he fills it with these concerts of Broadway music done by Broadway people. It's kind of cool. We're going to ask him how he did it, because I know I would watch him in the nascent stages of putting this together and wonder how it was doing, if it would ever take off, if it would ever go anywhere. It sure did. So we're going to be talking about writing and musical theater and Broadway by the Year with my old friend Scott Siegel coming up later on Dave's Gone By. We'll also be doing our weekly Inside, excuse me, our weekly Inside Broadway segment of news of the Rialto, and plus more of our usual kooky, crazy stuff that we try and do every week here in the Daverhood. So let me clear my throat and clear some other parts of my body. And while I'm doing that, you'll hear the opening music, the intro, all that usual stuff. And then we will begin Dave's Gone By Improperly Proper on this Saturday, February 22nd, 2020. Oh, it's going to be a great one.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. There goes the Daverhood.
And there was much rejoicing.
Didn't your meds kick in yet?
We got David Lefker is here. He's a Long Island arts guy. He's got his own radio show.
I want you all to really enjoy a wonderful program done by a fine artist.
A glorious thing of unparalleled beauty.
Dave's Gone By. Dave is one of my very favorite broadcasters, so keep on listening to Mr. Dave.
Two flamingos in a fruit fight. Every color of day.
Well, as I said, there goes the Daverhood. Here goes the Daverhood with me, Dave Lefkowitz, welcoming you all to a brand new edition, our 734th edition of Dave's Gone By here in the Daverhood. And it's funny, you know, sometimes I hear that number, that we have done 734 or 33 previous ones of these over the past 17 and a half years. And I'm thinking, I'm still doing this, I'm getting up, and now Saturday mornings, and I got 3 hours, and I got to plan this and write this out and do that. And yet I get on here, and it's kind of like, yeah, right? This is partly what I live my week for. It's my enjoyment for the week. It's my sharing for the week, things I care about, things that amuse me, and I hope will amuse you too. And it's one of those things that I still, to this day, look forward to as much or more than those of you who, like Tony and Al and Frank and all these other folks who I can't see tuning in, but I'm sure they are watching and enjoying. But it's as you must know, we all do it for ourselves. If David Letterman had never made it hugely big, he would have been a miserable person, but he still would have figured out a way somewhere in Indiana to get on a low-power television station and be a weatherman or do his thing, because it's what he had to do, right? Johnny, well, I don't know about Johnny Carson, but you pick any of these guys, Jimmy Kimmel, if he hadn't gotten off was the Man Show and MTV and gotten on major network, he'd still be doing something like what he's doing, because it's in us. It's what we have to do, and it's what we care about if you're theater people. And when we're talking theater and stage and media people, because as I mentioned just before the jump, as it were, we'll be having Scott Siegel on this episode of the show. Scott, an old friend of mine, old critic, colleague, acquaintance of mine, who has left. I mean, I think he still reviews theater. I know his wife, Barbara, is on the drama desk, and she is coordinating and seeing a bunch of theater and stuff like that. But Scott is made the leap to not quite front, well, he is front of stage. I shouldn't say that, because what Scott Siegel does in his revue, R-E-V-U-E, shows at Town Hall, and also he does other kinds of shows at 54 Below, I believe, and the Green Room and stuff. He'll introduce these fabulous singers and performers of Broadway caliber, or actual Broadway people, and then they'll come out and do a song. And the nice thing is, for Broadway by the Year, if you've never seen it, or perhaps never even heard of it, the brilliant idea of it is that it's not just a bunch of cabaret people coming out with a theme. It's like, oh, love songs, or a tribute to Cole Porter, a tribute to Frank Sinatra tunes. It's more like, hey, 1945, for example, was an important year in musical theater because Carousel came out. It opened, the Rodgers and Hammerstein classic musical Carousel. What was 1945 like on Broadway? There was Carousel. What other shows opened that year on Broadway? Let me tell you a little bit about them. And while I'm giving you this history lesson, gentle lecture, we're going to illustrate it, we're going to punctuate it with songs and even the occasional dance from shows that opened that year. It's one of those high concept ideas that's so brilliant you wonder why the hell you didn't think of it, right? Well, Scott Siegel thought of it. Scott Siegel said, this would be a great thing. Instead of my going into some university and teaching musical theater, which he certainly could, let me make this an entertainment. Let me do this as part town hall-y. It wasn't even town hall at first, I don't think, but let me do it as part lecture, part review. That people will come to this cabaret space, be enlightened, learn a few things, hear a few trivia items about a particular year on Broadway, and also get the full experience. I'll tell them about some show that opened. I'll give them some basic facts, maybe a little story behind the show, and then boom, they'll hear a song or two by amazing people. You figured this is a can't miss idea. Guess what? It didn't miss. It took some time, but it grew into the Broadway by the year that we know today. I built this up so much. I bet you can't wait to hear from Scott Siegel about his life and his writing career and his putting this all together. We will on Dave's Gone By in a while on this program. What else should I do? Oh, so that's why we're calling the show Great Scott. Get it? Great Scott for Scott Siegel. I was trying to pun on Jonathan Livingston Siegel and found nothing. Nothing whatsoever. Great Scott just was like a much better idea. And I mentioned we also have our weekly Inside Broadway segment that we do where I'll give you some news of the Rialto. Speaking of musical theater, speaking of important major musicals, a big Broadway revival opened a couple of nights ago of West Side Story, the Stephen Sondheim, Arthur Lawrence, Leonard Bernstein musical. And it's not your, as they would say, it's not your mother's West Side Story. This is Ivo Van Hove, one of the bad boy and enfant terrible, first of international theater, and recently off and on Broadway over the past decade. So now he's entrenched in our Broadway culture and affecting other people's directing work, like the Oklahoma that they did a season ago, which was dark and different, and they changed the musical context and everything. They're doing some of the same kind of stuff with West Side Story. The critics had a look at it a couple of nights ago. We're going to let you know what they thought. And what else are we doing? We're doing some of our usual stuff too. Our Colorado Limerick of the Damned, where every week I do a poem devoted to and dedicated to various towns and cities and municipalities in Colorado. And today, oh boy, today we go to Lay, Colorado. There's a town called Lay, Colorado. Is there a naughty limerick that can go with a town called Lay? Somehow I believe there is. You'll just have to stay tuned and hear for yourselves. And what else? Oh, story time. We have story time this week. I'm excited about this. I know I shouldn't be, but you know, we're just coming off the end of President's Week. And I yacked about this on the previous program, that it was one thing back in the day when you had Washington's birthday and then Lincoln's birthday, and then we'll combine them both together, and then it became President's Day. You didn't even know what the hell the day was for. And at least in our town here, speaking of Thornton Wilder, in our town, they don't even have President's Day now. It's President's Week. The kids get a week off even before spring break because, you know, God forbid they should do a little work. But okay, President's Week. We're coming off the tail end of President's Week. What better time, ladies and gentlemen, to do the book that I've gotten for you for story time this week. I'm going to show the cover. This is one of the greatest, most horrible covers of a book I have ever seen. It is a children's book. I'm getting it. Just because I've walked away from the camera doesn't mean that I've walked away forever. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a book by Patricia Polacco. And I don't know if Polacco means Polish, but here's this book, just in time for President's Week. And to explain, by the way, story time has to do with my reading a book, or either in parts if it's a long book, or the whole book on a show, sharing them with you and making little wisecracks, which I tend to do. Well, here's the... every time I look at this cover, I find something else horribly wrong with it. But here, this is not a joke. This isn't some doctored Conan O'Brien, David Letterman thing. This is a real book for children, okay, about history. Here it is. It's called Just in Time, Abraham Lincoln. Oh, check that out. I don't even know what's, first of all, they didn't reach Abraham Lincoln just in time. They were way too late to help him. And now you've got this child with Lincoln who looks like he's got heartburn. And of course, he's much worse off than that, as far as we know. And then they've got these two children. One of them is tending to him. Another is, I don't know what the hell, he's pulling up his pants or something. We're going to read, all or part of, Just in Time, Abraham Lincoln, on Storytime, on Dave's Gone By. You don't want to miss this. Oh my goodness. So that's going to be on Dave's Gone By too, as well as Greeley Crimes and Old Times, and our Today, Yesterday quiz. Boy, oh boy, what fun and delight. So I'm a little bit underslept. Let me take this off. I don't need to wear this for the whole show. It's hurting my brain head. I put it on just in case the Martians are watching and the tinfoil keeps them away. There, thank you very much. So, let me tell you why I had a difficult sleep last night. I was sleeping fine, and then the dog got us up at like 4:30 in the morning, because that's when the dog decides to poop and has to be cleaned and is walking around the room. But then I couldn't get back to sleep, and my heart was pounding, and I was kind of, because I had a trigger thing. You know, I'm not particularly PTSD oriented, although there are a couple of things that happen in my life that do trigger me, as it were. Not in a like I was in a war sort of a way, but there are things that trigger me. And if I feel like I'm being stolen from, I get triggered and angry. And I told you a couple of weeks ago, months ago maybe at this point, about how I just flipped out a bit at my local bank when I realized that month after month, unbeknownst to me because I wasn't checking statements carefully enough, they were docking me fees for having insufficient balance, blah, blah, blah. And we, first of all, they were sending the statements, if they were sending them at all, to Colorado, and we weren't getting them here in New York, so I had no idea of knowing about that. And by the time I came back to them, I actually had a negative balance in the account at that point, because they had spent like a year taking 15 or 20 bucks a month out of my account, unbeknownst to me, stealing my money, essentially. And so I went into the bank and was very nice to the folks who were there. I'll say them, it's Bank of America, local branch. Went in there, and there was one woman who was trying to be kind of helpful. And then another woman said, no, this is already too long in the past. It's been going on too long. There's nothing we can do. You're out. Whatever it was, $100, $150, $200 of just our fees. Interestingly enough, I was not very nice to her. Happily, I didn't do anything that cameras would catch on the bank TV monitors and show me throttling someone or making this move to her. I don't know, how do gangsters, how can be gangster? There's nothing remotely gangsta about me, is there? So, but anyway, I was not pleasant to her because she's a thief. The bank stole money that was mine and would not make any restitution, any recompense. I closed my account. I said, the hell with you. Never dealing with you again. Fine. And so now there's this other bank, right? And this is a bank that, I felt really proud of myself about. Because I opened an account, I guess, about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, when still living in Colorado. They have one of these big special things. Like, if you put in a certain amount and do this, this, and this, we'll give you this bonus of whatever it was, like $300. Right? And I'm like, well, happily, I've got this little bank, and it wasn't like tens of thousands of dollars. It was a certain amount. Like, in fact, it was really great because all you had to do was just very little. I was like, I'll put in $100 and keep it there for a certain amount of time and so forth. So I was like, I'm going to take advantage of this. Why not? The bank wants to give me money, which is what banks used to do when interest rates, remember, used to be 10, 12, 14%, or even 8%. You would do the bank a favor by giving them your money, and they would repay the favor. They would repay your kindness by giving you decent interest. And saying, well, don't keep it in your mattress. Give it to us. We'll tend it for you. We'll make some money off it, and then some of that money we'll give to you in interest. Win-win, win-win, right? And then fee culture took over. Penalty culture took over, as it did with credit cards, right? And by credit cards, you kind of understand. If you miss a payment or you make this deal that you're not paying back the whole thing all at once, okay, they tell you, yeah, we're going to charge you 28% interest. You know it. We know it. If you miss a payment, we're going to dock you $40 at a time. That's part of the deal. But in a bank, it's just your dough sitting there. It should be your dough, no matter what, unless you overdraft, right? That's a different kind of a thing. If you write a check that you can't cover, I get that. But it's just your money, right? In an account for you. It's not their money, it's yours. Should be yours, let it alone. So I get, so I decide to take advantage of this bank. It's First Bank. I'll even say, it's that one, the number one ST bank, because people who are in money are too lazy to write out FIRST, so and they want to use numbers, so they use the numeral First Bank. And when I first open an account, I go in, and I know one of the things that they do is they know that no matter what, whenever you open an account or deal with it, it's going to be an hour out of your life. An hour out of your lunch hour is you sit down, you have papers to sign, do this. You go in knowing that. That's why they have to give you $300 in the first place, to get you through the door. But I said, here's the deal. There's rules opening this account. Fine. Here are the rules. A, if you set up a direct deposit, they love that. That's what the banks really want. They want you to take wherever you're working from and have the checks go straight to them. Fine. Okay. Set up direct deposit. I didn't want to do that. I was getting paid at that point, but I already had an account and stuff from university where I was teaching. But there were these other things. They say, if you follow these rules, you get an account and you get this bonus. And what the rules are, you have to have open with a certain amount, and I think it was minimum $100. Fine. You have to use the account something like 10 times in 3 months with a debit card. So I think I opened the account with about $200 or maybe a little more, and I made sure to do that. Mostly with like the first 3 weeks. Every time, instead of using my credit card, I would go supermarket, use a debit card. Pay a bill, use a debit card. Wherever I could use a debit card. And then for little things, they just had to be a transaction. Didn't have to be for $1,000 here, $500. Just do a transaction. Do 10 of them, I think it was, over this certain amount of time. And then the other thing that you had to do is, I think over a 6-month period, since it was an online kind of account, even though it's a bank that has standing structures, you have to check into the website. You got to go into your account and look at your balance or do something, click on something so that you're there. And if you do that for 6 months and you make all these transactions and you keep the balance of like $100 minimum average in there over this period, $300 in your pocket. I'm like, okay, you keep your side of the deal, I keep my side of the deal. And I did. I did everything that was required of me to get this account in good standing, keep it, got my bonus. And they were good on their side, I was good on my side. And okay, and now I don't really pay attention to this account because it isn't where I keep the money that I live on. It isn't where I keep the stuff where payments come when I work. I open it specifically to get the bonus. I'm using them the way they're using me. And then, just for that, I do get an email from them just saying, oh, time to check your account, blah, blah, blah. And then I get one of those every month. Sometimes I open it, sometimes I don't, because I haven't been using it. I haven't been depositing, withdrawing, whatever. I'm just leaving it. Leaving the money in there in case I ever need it. And there should be about whatever my initial deposit was. There's virtually no interest, of course, and then the bonus that they gave me. But yesterday I thought, let me check. Let me open the email. So I open the email, open the email, click onward to my bank account, and I noticed that suddenly it's under $400 with $10 deducted. And I'm like, I didn't spend anything. I used a debit card. I didn't write a check for $10. What is this? And I click, and then I see a fee, not for insufficient balance. I didn't try to pay or not pay anybody or underpay someone. It was for insufficient, or not insufficient, inactivity fee. Inactivity fee. Now, for a couple of months, I haven't opened the website or checked on it or done anything in the branch or used it. It's just been sitting there for a little while, inactive. And the bank saw fit to look at this, even though that's my money, so not the bank's money, mine, and say, well, you haven't clicked into the website for a couple of months. You're inactive. That's costing us nothing, but we're going to dock you $10 for every month that this happens. So immediately, it's like, again, this trigger, because I had like a friend when I was growing up steal from me when I was a kid, and I've had bicycles stolen when I was a kid, and that was a traumatic experience. So being stolen from, being taken from, is a trigger for me. And immediately my heart starts, much more than like $10, or it's probably 20 or 30 over the past 2 or 3 months that they've been doing this, that they've cost me so far. So we're talking about a small amount of money at this point. It's the principle of the thing, since there is no interest, is the principle of the thing. The bank is stealing from me. It's like thump, 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 thump. Like 7:30 at night, I call the 800 main number of the bank. Not a long waiting time, which was okay. So it doesn't give me time to like, I get a very lovely customer service representative who, and the first thing, of course, is like, well, she needs the full account number. And when you're on the website, you don't actually see the full account number. They're trying to be careful. It's like XXX-XXX-4 numbers, like with Social Security number. And I'm like, okay, I don't have that in front of me. I don't know the full account number off the top of my damn head. And apparently my Social Security number isn't enough for you to go into the account and tell me anything. So we go through this whole rigmarole of trying to prove, the mother's maiden name thing, this, and that, and then finally say, you know what? And you should all know this if you don't, that on most banks and bank websites, there's a thing where if you go in on one of the pages and you click on where the X's are in the number, it'll open up and say, do you want to see the full number? And you click, yes, I do. Right. So finally, after like 5 minutes of going through, favorite dead pet, favorite color, what was my, whatever it was, these stupid questions that aren't helping me get to access the information in the first place. Finally, we get to, I figure out the number, I read it to her, and she says, okay, yeah, it's an inactivity fee, here's the issue, right? I said, well, right, okay, I'm a member in good standing, this is my money, right? I open this account, I followed all the directives, there was no mention back then that so if I just leave the account alone, I'm going to be docked for it, right? I mean, this is like a hope chest. This is just some money that I made that I'm putting away, and I'm only going to use it, if I really need it. That's why it's sitting there. And after wasting about 10, 15 minutes, getting through being on hold, talking to the woman, getting the pad, and looking, she said, oh yeah, you've got to go to your local branch, because this was the thing done with them, and this is the main number, the 800 number. And I'm like, well, it's kind of a long walk. If I start now, I could be back in Colorado to the local First Bank branch by Tuesday afternoon, and I said, well, just call them then. And it's like, well, when can I call them? And she says, well, call them tomorrow morning. I'm like, hello. So there's a temptation. if I wasn't giving out personal information, there is this temptation to call my local branch right now and do this on the air. I think there's probably something illegal, whatever, and then you start hearing personal information that I shouldn't give. But I'm so tempted to call my local First Bank branch as part of this program, right? And make that part of the show. But I'm not gonna do it. But if they give me a hassle, maybe next Saturday, that will be an interesting new segment on Dave's Gone By. But here's sometime on Monday morning, I'll have to take a little breaky from work and sit down and start all over again and talk to my First Branch bankers and be very nice to them and say, okay, can you please reverse this? I'm here. I'm not inactive, right? The account is perfectly fine. Either give me back the money you've stolen from me, or close the account, send me a check, you're a bank. But this is why 4:35 in the morning, I'm like taking my money. It's not like I earn a lot of money. I have a full-time job and the salary's crap. I don't mind saying that to everybody who knows me and who knows where I work, and the salary's crap. And I've never been a rich person. Never even, since I've been on my own, been solidly middle class. It's always been kind of lower middle, almost high poor, and then heading towards middle. And just now, the irony is, because my wife and I were able to sell our house in Colorado, it's nice. We have a little dough in the bank, which we're saving, because when we go to buy something else, we're going to need every single penny of it. So it's interesting that even right now, when I can look in our bank account and technically, it's like, that looks very nice. I'm fighting over $10 because my $10, right? You know how that is. You know how you go into the supermarket and you don't want to pay like $3.50 for a 64-ounce iced tea because you know that when it's on sale, it's $1.99. And yet when you go into a nice restaurant, the entree's $23. Fine. It's like your brain goes through all these permutations of what is worth and what you're willing to pay for this and not willing to pay for that, even though essentially it's the same money, right? I've never really been able psychologically to figure all that out. It's true. I mean, I've got my friend from high school, Robert, who's going, yes, banks are a typical nightmare that you're going through, and yes, but isn't that the weirdest thing? Like you're trying to book a hotel room, and it's $197 a night. And you don't even think, plus hotel tax, so it's really $240 a night. And then you go somewhere else and you want to buy, I don't know, you need to buy a new lamp at Kohl's or Kmart or Walmart or something. And you say, this lamp is $48. Do I really want to pay $57? The weird things we do on our own heads. But anyway, this is coming all out of my head on Dave's Gone By, the Dave's Gone By Facebookio, Podcastio, Programmio of the stream with me, Dave Lefkowitz. Been doing this since October of 2002. If you want to know what this show sounded like back then, remember that you can go to our website, davesgoneby.com, DAVSGONEBY, davesgoneby.com, for our archives. Don't go there now. Keep watching me. This is live. But if you want to hear the very first episode, it's there at our archives. If you want to hear this is our 734th. You can hear our 134th. Or our 234th, or 534th episode. Virtually every show we've ever done has been archived on the site. Most of them in pretty good audio condition. I mean, there's some with some glitches and things, but a lot of them sound fine. And they're all there. And they're chronological order. And there's even a second archive there where we've stripped out the interviews that we've done. So that's kind of easy if you're just looking for someone who's appeared on the show. Like later on today, we've got Scott Siegel of Broadway by the Year, and also a writer of a ton of books with his wife, Barbara. But, he does this show that celebrates Broadway and nightclub cabaret singing. And a lot of the folks who appear on his Broadway by the Year have been guests on the program. Like Tova Feldshuh is going to be one of the performers this coming Monday night when he does Broadway by the Year at Town Hall. Well, Tova Feldshuh was on this program, I think, twice in years past. In fact, she's one of the first guests we ever had talking to Rabbi Saul Solomon which is, so we're very, very proud of that. But she's been on there, and you know, a lot of what's Mark Nadler has been a guest in the Daverhood. I'm blanking, but the types of people who would appear on Broadway by the year have been on Dave's Gone By. People like Ann Hampton Calloway, or Karen Mason, or Linda Lavin, or who are others? Some Broadway cabaret. Charles Corcoran, I think, was on the program. Steve Ross, of course. I mean, down the line. And if you want to hear interviews with these folks, you can either listen to them as part of the whole show, or just go into the the archive of guests that we have at davesgoneby.com. And it also behooves me to remind you that not only are our episodes saved there, but they're also saved on YouTube, so you can find them there. Sometimes they have to be cut and muted a bit because of copyright rules. But okay, I mean, I would love to, you know, aside from explaining bank culture and bank fees and things, I would love if somebody could explain YouTube's way of going about it, where you can watch a zillion videos and audio things of album tracks and songs that people have posted by famous artists. And yet if I play half a minute of a song by that artist as part of Dave's Gone By, YouTube will block the show worldwide until I mute that minute. Sometimes it just boggles me. But anyway, you can find our shows on YouTube, or even better still, archive.org. We've been putting them up slowly, but the past year or so of video and audio of the program you'll find in our Dave's Gone By page at archive.org, or if you're a podcasty type person who needs to be on the go and just wants to hear the show, you can go to castbox.fm. It's a podcasting site, so that's a really good way if you're going to download specifically as a podcast to take on your way with you, castbox.fm. And again, all these places, the banner, the place to find us is Dave's Gone By. Robert has been messaging, saying about, it's not just banks, obviously, how about the fuel surcharge that the fuel surcharge that airlines imposed and never got rid of after fuel costs fell. Yeah, how about those? Baggage check and carry-on. Yeah, anybody who can. How about the fees, since we're very in a Broadway-oriented mode on this Dave's Gone By, the theater reconstruction fees, or facility fee that all these places have been charging for a decade now, that extra $1.50 or whatever it is that gets tacked on every time you walk into a Schubert or a Niederlander or a Jujamson theater, that was to restore these theaters to their former glory. How many millions now have been made on that little extra $1.50 after these places have been long restored? And Broadway's been making gazillions of dollars, and these landlords have been doing very, very, very well. It's like, keep the extra $1 off. With Broadway tickets at $180 a pop, who's going to notice the extra $1? That is capitalism, folks. That's Broadway for you. Anyway, welcome to Rick and Bert, and let's see who else. Can I get to see who else is logged? Oh, and Warhol, of course, and Frank and Michael and Robert and Louise. Oh, hello, Louise, and John, of course, and Frank and Al and Tony, and again, bunches of people from from watch parties and other ways that people see this program live. Well, I'm Dave Lefkowitz. The name of the show is Dave's Gone By. What do we do? Let's get to some Broadway stuff, and then we'll get to some other stuff, and then we'll get to Scott Siegel, and then we'll get to more stuff. If I could just get my mouth to work properly instead of stumbling over all these words, that would be pretty good. Maybe I just need to take a break and do a little Broadway music, excuse me, and then talk about Broadway, because I do love it so much, inside Broadway. Inside Broadway, a look at theater on and off Broadway and beyond. Brought to you by Total Theater and Performing Arts Insider. Curtain going up. Actually, I'm snapping the wrong way. I kind of should be snapping like, Except if you know anything about the show, the revival that opened this past week on Broadway, you know that there aren't any in this particular iteration. I will explain. But let's get to Inside Broadway. I've been a theater journalist, a writer, a critic, actor and director, playwright for 30 plus years now. So I do love talking about the theater and sharing theater news with you every week on Dave's Gone By in this Inside Broadway segment. Well, here's one song that hasn't been on Broadway yet, kinda. I'm a pepper, you're a pepper, he's a pepper, she's a pepper, wouldn't you like to be a pepper too? However, if you're a jagged little pill, you really don't want any pepper. And yet there it was last Saturday when the matinee of the Alanis Morissette-based musical Jagged Little Pill had to stop in the middle of the second act, more than 2 hours into the show. They stopped because there was apparently a pepper spray incident in the crowd. I don't know if it was not clear what actually happened, whether some couple of people got into an altercation and somebody pulled out the pepper spray, or if it was an accident. Somebody might have been reaching to turn off a cell phone or just reaching for a candy. And like, wait, is this Pez? You know, whatever it was, pepper spray went over like 3 or 4 people in the crowd. 2 of them were injured slightly, but refused hospital. They didn't want to go to the hospital or anything. But they had to stop the show. They didn't even start the show. Again, they had to think about it. They had to refund the tickets for the show. And the Saturday evening show did go on. At first they were going to cancel it, but they let it go. They cleaned up enough. I guess I had to get the pepper spray residue off the seats, out of the air conditioning duct system in order to make it okay. But what do you do? I mean, apparently it was an accident that the spray went off. But here's the producers. Jagged Little Pill is grossing, I think, a solid, like close to $1 million per show. What am I? No, they're making like $1 million a week or plus. And so, which would mean 8 shows, at least $100,000 per performance. So imagine these poor producers like having to, and they have to do this obviously when there's a snowstorm, they gotta cancel, but here's these people who paid and they gotta let them all back in free at some point. And that little incident cost producers probably like $100,000 or more. Do you come after the person who had the pepper spray accident, right? Which is kind of, I get that, but at the same time, like if someone has a heart attack, God forbid, and got to stop the show and bring in ambulances and they can't really start the show again. You can't suddenly say, well, shame on you, can't have a heart attack in the middle of the show. You just cost us all sorts of money. So I don't know. I imagine the pepper spray person is banned from, I guess, I don't know if it's a Nederlander or a Schubert venue. But yeah, interesting things can happen on Broadway. Thank goodness that's all it was. And everything went fine, as I said, for the Saturday evening show at the Broadhurst for this Jagged Little Spill. Oh, and here's an interesting thing. You don't hear about this happening much. And maybe it should happen more. Maybe it would be chaotic if it did happen more. But Frozen on Broadway, right? It's been there for about 2 years now at the St. James Theater. The reviews, meh. It's okay. Better than some of the other Disney shows that we've had recently, but not another Lion King, not blah, blah, blah. All right. And when I went to see Frozen on Broadway, when it first opened, they had turntable trouble that halted just towards the beginning, just towards the end of the first act, just before the let it go moment. And we had to wait about 20 minutes while they were fixing, and there will now be a break, and the house lights went up, and we're like, oh, for God, I'll never get home. So, you know, the show has had its issues that have been fixed, and it's been a destination show for girls of a certain age. So whatever the critics thought of it, whatever problems it might have had technically, the show's been doing all right. I don't know if it's made its money back yet. It may actually be a hit. It's been running 2 years. Probably has high overhead, though. But it will also become a big deal. And it's been touring. And it's been touring all over the world. So it's doing pretty well, right? Frozen, just as it is. And yet the folks at Disney have said, you know what, it's not a perfect show. It's had issues. And in the iterations that we've been doing in other countries and on tour, they made changes for the better. Several of them. And we're going to institute them on Broadway. We're going to take the show that's been running for 2 years now. And actually, we're going to drop a song. We got a new duet for the two lead actresses to do that'll solidify their relationships and give them a new big, what number to sing. So that's the thing. Sometime in March, they're going to institute all these new changes, like a new revised book for a musical that's been running about 2 years to make it better. I think overall that's kind of a neat idea. I think that's kind of a cool thing to do, right? And we'll see how that goes. I mean, it's at the point where unless they let critics in again, I don't know what difference it's going to make. If someone who's bringing their child in from Staten Island or from one of the boroughs, somebody's going to make, so they've made this change and they've taken out this song, but they put in this song. I don't know if they care. They're going to be bringing their kid anyway. But it's kind of nice that Disney tends to its brand in a certain way. And they figure, what we've done has really made this better. Let's make the Broadway one better too. I'm for that. I think that's kind of neat. Okay, some sad news before we get to the West Side Story that opened on Broadway a couple of nights ago. Some sad Broadway news. Got to say farewell to actress Zoe Caldwell. Forgive me if it's Zoe or Zoe. I may not be getting the pronunciation right, but it's Zoe Caldwell, 4-time Tony winner, passed away on February 16th, age 86 from complications from Parkinson's. She was an Australian actor. She was born in Australia, made her name acting in London. She joined the Royal Shakespeare Company there, where, check out some of her credits early in her career. She played Bianca to the Othello of Paul Robeson. Can you imagine that? Man, just think about it. And then after being at the RSC and doing all these shows in London, she came to the United States, not directly to New York or Broadway. She went to the Guthrie Theater, or as real theater know-it-alls call it, the Guthrie Theater for Tyrone Guthrie. Oh, these pronunciations are killing me today. But whichever way you call it, she went to Minnesota there, did shows there. She even taught at the Actors Studio in New York. And these are the 4 shows for which Zoe Caldwell won Tony Awards: Slapstick Tragedy, The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie, Medea, and a show I saw her in, Masterclass, where she was masterful, playing Marie Callas in the original iteration of Terrence McNally's play. She was absolutely fabulous. She also was playing in the Stratford Festival up in Canada. She did Antony and Cleopatra with Christopher Plummer. Not too shabby there. And here's the deal. Check this out. Her Broadway debut was as a cast replacement in the play The Devils, featuring Jason Robards and Anne Bancroft. Pretty high company right from the get-go. She did a Strindberg play, The Dance of Death, in 1974. Her co-stars Robert Shaw and Hector Elizondo. How's that? How is that for a company, too? And then in 1986, she was in a solo show called Lillian, where she played Lillian Hellman. She became a director, too. There was a play that I wasn't much of a fan of called Park Your Car in Harvard Yard that featured old friend Jason Robards and Judith Ivey. It was kind of a popular comedy by Israel Horovitz. I thought it was meh, but Zoe Caldwell directed that one. So she made the move into that side of the curtain, too. You've probably seen her on film, but she was a real theater creature. Apparently, I don't even remember this, but she was in Woody Allen's Purple Rose of Cairo. I'm sure if we watch the movie right now, it's there's Zoe Caldwell, for sure. But this was a theater star, 4-time Tony winner. We do say a fond farewell to... excuse me, not to my burp. I'm saying farewell to the gas that came out of my passage there, but to Zoe Caldwell from the Daverhood. Well, critics said hello this past week on February 20th, I think that was Thursday night, to a new revival, emphasis on the word new, of West Side Story, one of the great all-time musicals. Music by Leonard Bernstein, lyrics by Stephen Sondheim, book by Arthur Lawrence, directing or adapting this Shakespeare fella, something called Romeo and Juliet. And we know the story of West Side Story. It was originally supposed to be like Jews and Puerto Ricans or something. It was going to, and I'm not joking about this. It was going to be called East Side Story. And then there's no, that's not really happening. And then they realized, oh, okay, the gangs, let's move it to the West Side. Let's have Puerto Ricans versus the Irish and all that's going on. Ivo Van Hove. Now, he is known as, quote, an avant-garde director. He strips things down. He modernizes them. He streamlines them. He deconstructs the old dramaturgical language, might say. And he's been doing that with a bunch of shows and a bunch of classic shows on and off Broadway and around the world for, I think, a good solid 2 decades now. So now he gets the chance to work on the big stage, on the biggest stage ever, a Broadway theater. And this West Side Story is actually at the Broadway theater on Broadway. So here's the deal. Now, this revival was already controversial from the get-go because the guy playing Bernardo, and I'm not going to ignore this, he's a dancer, apparently a very fine dancer, was a dancer with the New York City Ballet. Did very well with the New York City Ballet until apparently he was a naughty, naughty boy, and he was taking pictures of some of the female dancers in various states of déshabille, if you will. So, and he was caught and was fired, and I don't think he was prosecuted or anything like that, but it's a black mark on his record. I'm just shocked that they found a ballet dancer who was heterosexual and taking pictures of naked women. Who knew? But so he did this, and now he's hired to be in West Side Story, and suddenly the protests go up. There were protests on opening night. So how can you open this? How can you have this man in this woke era who did this terrible, terrible thing? And the producers of West Side Story are saying, yeah, it was a terrible, bad thing, but that was something, if it's true, that was dealt with by New York City Ballet, happened there, right? He's been fine with us, nothing to do with us, paid whatever fine or suffered whatever punishment that equity and the law asked him to back in 2018 when that was an issue at the ballet. He's now with us. It's not a problem. Let us be. Let us do our show. So the guy by the name is Amar Ramasar. And anyway, so. But enough of that. Enough of the controversy that's got nothing to do with the show. In terms of controversy involving the show, it's a new West. Oh, I hear the dulcet tones of my darling and adorable wife Joyce, who's bringing me chocolate milk.
No, I want you to put egg cream.
Oh, who's making me egg cream?
Dark.
See, so this is the thing. This is a real New York moment. What?
You want it darker?
No, actually, egg cream would make it lighter. Look at the spangles. Ooh, and we're doing Inside Broadway as we speak. Ooh, make it shiny. Oh, okay, yeah. While you're doing this, I'll sing something from West Side. Something's coming, something spangly, something that's
don't pull.
Shines. It's all silvery over my shirt, over my face.
Beautiful.
Who cares in this place? Who do? I need my seltzer. Wait, is there an open one? Seltzerize me. I need my egg cream now. This is how I treat my wife.
Hold it.
Egg cream time.
You took off your halo, Bubba.
Yes, it was crushing my head.
Okay.
I'm crushing your head. I'm crushing it. Remember that from Kids in the Hall? Oh, boy.
You might need more seltzer.
It's okay. It's fine. Look at this. Look at this beautiful thing. Oh, no, please don't. Oh. Look at this beautiful work of New York art.
You got to stir it, too.
The egg cream. Milk, a spritz, and chocolate syrup. Nothing better in the world, ladies.
Wow.
And I've had sex once or twice. Nothing better than this.
What's that monster?
So, before I get back to West Side Story, how you doing, my dear?
Good. I'm gonna put the. I can't plug in the heating pad. Uh-oh.
Is not plugged in still? Joyce, here, give me a moment. Talk to the fine, kind people while I'm plugging in your heating pad. You want to explain why you need a heating pad? Well, you mentioned it on the air, so wait, I just stepped on this. Hold on. Oh, put potato, yeah, okay. But anyway, Joyce is fine. Potato is fine.
Oh, God.
Let's get back to West Side Story. Well, or how are you?
Isn't there a lot of conflict?
Well, yeah,
What
I was
the
just
conflict that it was
I was just
non-union?
telling. No. I was telling the folks that the guy who plays Bernardo.
Yeah. He took naked pictures of people.
Yeah. First of all, I don't know how I can weigh in on this unless I see those photos. I want to see the naked photos of those dancers in order to make a proper decision as to his skill. I have to study those photos carefully.
With the magnifying glass.
And with a magnifying glass, absolutely.
Get your pants off.
I need a magnifying glass. I need a little jar of Vaseline and some Kleenex.
God, David.
Well, I'm just saying. If I want to do this right, you understand? But anyway, so there's that controversy, and then there's the show itself, because this is not.
Look who woke up. He's like, what?
Oh, here we
take
go.
some naked photos of him.
Oh, look who's here.
He showed the diaper. He's got his diaper. He's not naked.
So he needs a new diaper, though.
Yes, of course. Don't we all?
Our dog, who's shaped just like a log. This is our dog, Oofty Gooft. He's a dachshund. Okay. All right.
So what's the controversy?
Well, it's if you want your typical West Side Story with tons of singing and dancing and a mix of tragedy and comedy and some old-fashioned Broadway razzle-dazzle, this may not necessarily, according to the critics, be the West Side Story for you. This is a West Side Story that is flanked and where the performers are actually dwarfed by the video going on all around them.
It's like a Worcester. I like Worcester, but
right. So some bit of that, of giant video screens.
Is it like in El Barrio? They make it more.
It's modernized. It's up to date.
I would like that.
Yeah, they cut out. It's all done.
They should have like the whole immigration thing and like all the policies, right?
Well, it's echoing that. It's
like
supposed to echo.
Deported.
Right, and apparently there's more violence than usual. So it's cops versus the underclass.
It's like stop and frisk. They should do stop and frisk.
Yeah, it's more like G Officer. I haven't seen it yet. I'm hoping to see it in the next week or two or three. But they apparently G Officer Krupke, which is a comic number.
David on the watch party. It's just the shiny parts. It's cute.
Oh, cool. Oh, but Krupke is now not even a funny, happy relief of thing. It's now apparently either the cop gets violent with them or they get violent with a cop, and it's all ugliness. Is the thing.
But that's the reality. The brutality that is our.
Yeah, but who wants to go to a musical and just drown?
Face in Argentina.
That was a musical.
Kids.
Yeah.
They sang.
Did they? I don't remember that.
Sang.
But it wasn't West Side friggin' Story. Yeah. There's no. Every single reviewer, for some reason, had to focus on the idea that the dancing, the choreography, had no finger snapping. If you read every review, it somehow bothered them. It's like. This is not your finger snapping.
We are the Jets. We are the Jets. Don't racially profile us. Don't deport my mom.
I don't remember that line from Stephen Sondheim. It's good.
Let me lock a child in the class. Oh, sorry.
And what's ironic is they're saying that the orchestra sounds great and the songs really sound really, really good.
A lot of people are joining them.
Which is kind of different from what they were saying about the modern the worked on Oklahoma that they did, where they turned everything into sort of a bluegrass sound and stripped the music.
You need good music because West Side Story, like when what's the actress Natalie? Not Natalie.
Oh, on the film, Natalie Wood.
Tonight, like people love that.
You know, they asked her to swim and Natalie wouldn't.
Oh no, but you know what I'm saying? These are like iconic. Like you can mess with some stuff, but when something's so iconic, people expect it. It would be like Fiddler on the Roof rap style.
Which I'm sure they've done.
No, but you know what I'm saying? It won't be the same.
Well, yeah, but then again, the director and other people can go and say, do we need another standard, prototypical West Side Story? Did we need another Oklahoma done Oklahoma way?
If I had screens, I would have the original West Side Story people singing it.
Oh, interesting.
I would be singing with it. You know, like back and forth, singing to the
like
screen.
Oklahoma Picture Show or West Side Story Picture Show?
You know, like singing to the thing, like having the girl get ready.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Singing tonight, but then watching
Maybe they do.
and doing.
I haven't seen. The problem is I can't weigh in on this. I'm just going by what the critics have been saying or writing when this opened 2 nights ago. So here's an overview of how the critics reacted, and they were sort of all over the board, more negative than positive, because I guess critics tend to be conservative in a basic sense.
Critics.
Yeah, Yeah, okay. And there's a certain expectation that they go in with for a show like West Side Story, where they want to be moved, they want to be excited by the dances, they want to be thrilled by.
I also think of Hamilton. If you're, my dislike of it. But I feel like if you do West Side Story, which was it was race and it was class and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And like territory and gentrification. Like if you don't bring in those themes, I think you're doing a disservice now.
But the themes are there.
Yeah.
The work itself, if it's going to last.
But it could be amplified, right? Like the police would harass the non-white kids more. Now the kids who are non-white would be stopped and frisked and arrested. Now they would ask about deportation. Now they would, know. So like.
But you know what? Back in the day, and they made this move. But back in the day, the cop on the beat would see a delinquent and crack his head open, white or black. He's just a delinquent,
Yeah, but mostly they were racialized,
Yeah, but I'm saying it's there. It's kind of like when you do My Fair Lady. When they did My Fair Lady, the show itself. If you do it in a certain time period, doing it now versus doing it in 1960 versus doing it in 1980, it's going to have or speak to certain aspects of feminism, certain aspects of sex and marriage, or not marriage, but relationships and things like that, just by its very nature. And the director can point those up a little bit. But it's sort of like when My Fair Lady was done at Lincoln Center 2 years ago. At the same time, like when Alfie sings "I'm getting married in the morning" and all the dance. Suddenly, you've got men dressed as women, women dressed as men. It's like, where does that come from? This is still 1800s.
I think that you can. I think you have to. If it's anachronistic, you have to explain it. So explain the concept to the piece. And I think it's like I learned this from something I'm working on now.
Yeah.
You have to tell people what to expect. So you could say this is an adaptation of West Side Story, modern day, like Leguizamo or something. Like you say, this is what it's like. It's going to be like this. You're not going to see the.
You announce it in the first time.
And then people know what people know.
But then you decide as the audience member whether it works or whether to accept it.
And you write it in the playbill, and you write it in the ad, and you let people know.
Well, a few people are going to be going to this West Side Story then expecting the movie. They shouldn't, if they are expecting the movie. Although with all that video, it's going to be closer to the movie than seeing the West Side Story from 20 years ago. See, that one was slightly controversial because Arthur Lawrence, who actually wrote...
many of the Hispanic people in the movie weren't Hispanic.
Oh, yeah. But I'm talking even the revival that Arthur Lawrence directed.
What was
about 15 years ago. He decided in his thing, it's like, hey, it's this era. I'm going to take a couple of the songs that are sung by the Puerto Rican characters, translate them into Spanish.
Oh, I would do that.
That's what he did. But other people were like, and some critics went with it, and other critics were like, we know these Stephen Sondheim lyrics. Sondheim is the most perfect lyricist Broadway has ever had.
No, but I think you're right, because if people would sing in Spanish or do Spanglish, do one chorus in English, one in Spanish.
They did some of that. Yeah. I didn't mind it. I did not mind it. But some other people, it's like, this is West Side Story. It's sacrosanct.
These are racist.
I'm sorry. These
are racist. Yeah. What? Racist faces. Like, get off your high horse and being so elite. If people are singing to each other in their native language, you're going to sing in the language you were first, taught at home.
So, but then should they do all the book scenes in Spanish too, so that we're sitting there not knowing what the hell they're singing or saying?
I think you can't because people wouldn't track.
Right.
But I think you could do some of the singing in Spanish.
That's what they did.
Or do some Spanglish in the talking.
I don't know. I don't remember if they did that. But you can do that. But it's controversial to some people. It's one thing if you change a few lines of Lawrence's dialogue. It's quite another if I forget the song that.
Yeah, but you know what? You can't be a purist. You could say this is an adaptation. This is a revival. They're different. Right? And then let people know. And these critics got to get off their high horse and.
Well, but it's also Broadway.
What do people want to see? What do they want to see? Right?
Well, that's the thing. Do you want to see something traditional, or do you make the argument that this is going to be this generation's West Side Story? It's not like they're going to revive West Side Story 5 years from now in a more traditional thing. We may not see West Side Story again for another 20, 25 years. So someone between 15 and 30, this will be their West Side Story, for better or worse. Are they getting the West Side Story experience, or are they just getting some fractured thing?
If I was a director or producer, I would do some days traditional, some days modern, new, and switch it.
You can't do
have two different casts.
For $18 million,
And you do you do say, okay, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or whatever, it's going to be traditional, or traditional on the weekends, and during the week we're going to be modern.
That's interesting.
And then it gives the actors difference too.
If you had the budget and you had a really, if you did a bare bones and you can, wow.
I would do that, and then everybody gets fed.
It's a fascinating. I don't want to do that with a musical, but I might do that with a. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe you could.
Because you got to keep then the audience could see it twice. If I was an audience member, I'd want to see it twice.
Twice to see what the tradition,
yeah.
what would be the.
Yeah.
Whoa. Huh.
Send me your check, Broadway producer people.
It's actually amazing. What do you think of that? I've got people tuning in, Bert and Kristen and Matthew and Carmen and Mark. And can you read some names from folks who...
Brian, James, Christopher, Cheryl, Kevin, Wendy, Louise. Louise Ann.
Oh, yeah.
I lost Louise Ann. Sorry, Louise Ann.
Oh, sorry, Louise Ann.
James, another James. Karen, Alan, Frank, George, Ray, Carrie, Larry, Wendy, Jimmy, Michael, Mark, Lisa, Brian, Tim, Trisha, Alan, James, Ray, Stacy, Pookie, Michael, Harry, and Dorian.
Oh, you had me at Pookie.
Pookie?
Yes, you definitely had me. Oh, so any one of you, if you want to see, pick another musical because West Side Story's taken now, but pick, they're going to be doing Company. That's the thing. They could do. They're bringing Company back with a female Bobby.
Nice.
Maybe on alternate nights they can do a male Bobby, and we can go back to more traditional.
Yeah, or you just get. I think it's a good idea.
I do too.
It's
fabulous.
It's like the Captain Underpants where you make your own movie.
Yeah. Let's finish up this West Side Story thing by saying what the critics thought of it. For example, Tim Tiemann of the Daily Beast was not a fan. He said a director as radical as Ivo Van Hove seems, on paper at least, a wise choice to direct this Broadway revival that is set in the present day. Most shockingly, West Side Story is not shocking. It's tame and impatiently brisk, and it's also a strange melange of the good, the bad, and the baffling. Everything just becomes another visual tableau. So he wasn't a fan of the modernizing.
Jeffrey and Eric just joined in.
Welcome to Jeffrey and Eric. We've got also a negative review from Alexandra Schwartz of The New Yorker. She says, for Ivo Van Hove, the avant-garde period is over. He is simply part of the Guard now. And the production is an infuriating example of what happens when a powerful style calcifies into shtick. It's infuriating because so much that is exciting, even revelatory here, is crushed beneath the director's insistence on a vision that feels narrow and doctrinaire. He wants to make us see an iconic work with new eyes, but all we can see is him. So she's taking into account what he wants to do, but also saying...
I think critics, I don't know. I think it's the biggest thing they say at the Theater Critics Organization. What do they really know and how much do they research? And who are they to judge?
Well, who's anybody to judge?
Where's their experience? Where's their training? For me, unless
this is a woman writing for The New Yorker. My guess is she's seen about 10 West Side Stories.
Yeah, but unless you have chops, who are you?
Okay. Showbiz 411, Roger Friedman writes, the videos are more distressing than the changes in the choreography. The dances are now just underwhelming. You miss Jerome Robbins' passion. So a lot of negative reviews so far, including, if you want to talk about somebody who is qualified to review theater, Chris Jones of the New York Daily News. But he liked it. He says, Ivo Van Hove has a macabre talent for articulating pending tragic disaster, as he did in his revival of A View from the Bridge. And the result is a gripping West Side Story that you watch with both an appreciation for the power of the young and in love and a profound sense of all-American doom. This is what Broadway can do when it focuses relentlessly on how it wants to make its audience feel. So he's on board.
That's a good review.
And Chris Jones is one of our best living. You know Chris. We've met him a few times on ACCA. New York One, Roma Torrey. And now she's had enough years in the business to know what she's talking about, but she's not happy. She says the novelty wears off quickly and we're left with a split focus, which is ultimately distracting. Yesenia Ayala is sensational, though, as Anita. I applaud the effort, but the video upstages the show. But guess who gave it an absolute rave? Johnny Oleksinsky of the New York Post gave it 4 stars out of 4.
Do you think the Post is qualified to review theater?
One of the other critics or people I was reading online said, the New York Post gave it 4 stars. That's all you need to know about this production.
Yeah, that's a little troublesome.
Belgian choreographer Anne-Therese de Keersmaker's more modern dances toss aside grace for youthful clumsiness and anger, which kind of makes sense, right? The extraordinary Isaac Powell makes a moving, motivated, and emotionally turbulent Tony. His golden-voiced Maria is Mountain Dew inflected with a teen's energy and squirmy awkwardness. It's still the show you love, reinvented for the time in which you live. It's a beautiful tagline. They should put, if they're taking any quotes for newspaper ads, that's the one.
I don't want the post.
So the critics all over the map.
What did the Times say? Nothing?
Times was not thrilled. They said that Ben Hope got kind of away with himself on this one and just delved into the spectacle of it, the big visual field of it, and lost the heart of it, lost why we would even care about these two young people in love. What?
I like Los Escuchantes or whatever. I think like
what Joyce is referring to is a show when Joyce and I went to Argentina on a kind of a theater critics thing that was done basically for us. We were brought to a couple of shows in Spanish, and one of them was about street kids in Argentina, in Buenos Aires.
I mean, it was very difficult to watch, but I felt it's a realistic depiction. You know, like if I'm poor living in like El Barrio, I'm not going to be wearing a nice dress singing Tonight with my hair done. So
in a musical,
you know,
it's like
you can't romanticize poverty, you can't romanticize race and these things. I mean, I think you have to be real. Yeah. And in a musical, if it's fake, you know, I don't know how much. We have a lot of fake news, right? So maybe people want real.
Well, I'm saying you can also have there's also people. If you do the important show by Lorraine Hansberry.
I don't know.
The woman on the couch, and then the family, and they want to sell the house and move to a white neighborhood. What was it called? Help me out, people who are watching. The Lorraine Hansberry.
Okay, I'll look it up on here.
If you can.
It's
one of those famous black plays of all time. And by the way, welcome.
Raisin in the Sun.
Raisin in the Sun. Thank you so much. Raisin in the Sun. You know, she keeps the place nice. There's a flower in a flower pot on the windowsill. You know, it's almost.
Thank Jamie said Raisin in the Sun.
Thanks, Jamie. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jamie.
But there's this idea that if it's going to be all squalor 100% of the time, audiences won't want to watch it, and that's not true either.
No, but you can tell that the play is written by the white male gaze. You know, and I think that it's
not Raisin in the Sun.
West Side Story. West Side Story, and I think you can see it, right? So it's like when someone writes about women's issues and they're not a woman or they're not in touch with women's issues, some of it rings false, right?
Well, and then by the way, one of the other
other
controversial things about this is that they took out "I Feel Pretty," which is a song that Stephen Sondheim never liked.
I feel pretty.
It's one of the most famous songs from the show, and it's a show that he always felt embarrassed about the lyrics.
You could make it "I Feel Shitty." I feel shitty.
Think about. Well, if Forbidden Broadway were to tackle,
I feel shitty.
I feel shitty. Yeah, because that's the way they're supposed to feel in this iteration of it. But Sondheim was saying this Puerto Rican girl is not going to say "I feel pretty and witty and gay." She's just not going to sing that. It's going to come out of her differently. He always felt embarrassed about it. Anyway, we're doing Inside Broadway on Dave's Gone By, the Dave's Gone By Facebookio, Podcastio, Programmio of the stream, and where we do this theater segment that I do love, and I hope you like it too, by the kind auspices of the folks who put out this, and I'm the folks who put out this. It's called Performing Arts Insider, the Bible of Broadway since 1944. So here, you can see West Side Story right on the cover of the February issue. Beautiful, ain't it? And plus, here's an off-Broadway show called Chekhov Tolstoy, and another show called Dana H. that's been playing in February. This is the journal and the magazine that people in the entertainment industry turn to for all the information they need about every single show, not just on Broadway, but off Broadway too. So we thumbed through it very quickly.
Jamie wanted to join the conversation. I said, please write in, that would be great.
Oh yeah, I don't see Jamie's things here. You're seeing them on the watch party, so you'll have to translate them to me. But take a look. Here's just page 2. You got a table of contents here, a guide to the Broadway season. Every single show that is either currently running, in previews, or about to open, plus shows that were running from seasons past, and a little map of the Broadway Theater District. That's how we compress so much information into such usable, practical space in this magazine. We move to the next page, a guide to Broadway theaters and their tenants. Every single Broadway theater, its address, which company owns it? Is it an organization? Is it Niederlander, Schubert, Second Stage, Roundabout? How many seats it has and what's playing, all on one page. And then we go further into the magazine. A guide to the press agents who handle all the shows, their phone numbers, their addresses, their email addresses. And then fabulous stuff, our listings, all the shows on Broadway, when they start previews, open and close, the theaters they're in, and who's handling them. And we do this, and you can't find this anywhere else, off and off Broadway too. For example, what is today is the 22nd of February?
Yeah.
Am I right? So on February 20th, oh my God.
What?
A lot of stuff happening on this date, and I can tell it to you just by looking at this page. On February 22nd, opening today, there's a festival called the Best of Theater Works at ART New York. And then they've got Esther Saves the Day. I think that's a children's show at the 14th Street Y. That's opening today. And then a show that sounds really, really fun and interesting called Too Macho. It's a kind of a farce at the Connolly Theater off Broadway. And then you've got other shows ending today, like Border People at ART New York. And I saw that. It was very good. Houseplant at New York Theater Workshop next door. And a weird version of Macbeth at Hunter College. And a couple of one-acts called Pelican and Isle of the Dead, done by Strindberg Repertory Theater. And finally, Stew, page 73 production at Walker Space. I'm not even sure what all these shows are, but look at that. I saw that just by reading this list. And then look at this page. Rumors, shows that are going to be coming possibly to Broadway in the months and years ahead. Is there more? You bet there is. The heart of the magazine are comprehensive listings of every show, either currently on Broadway or going to be opening on Broadway in the next month or year or so. And then we do the same for off and off Broadway as well. We get to the back of the magazine. And what else? Any other things in this particular issue? Let me share. Oh yeah, look at the back. Awards and special events of the theater industry. Let's see, anything happening in, well, on February 24th, you've got the Theater for the New City Love and Courage benefit, and the day after that, you've got Kids Night on Broadway.
Yeah, but I think you need to make a way that if people want to call, you got to download WhatsApp on your phone, and people could WhatsApp you.
Well, what do you mean, for visual? To
call, and then they will call without your number. We could WhatsApp or join people in.
Yeah, okay. Well, I got to think about how to do it, and we'll do it. Yeah, I think that's great. But let me remind you that there's an index on the last, or the penultimate page, and then, of course, the important thing, my picture, and an advertisement for Dave's Gone By. Even more important, how to subscribe to Performing Arts Insider. If you don't have a hard copy of the magazine, remember that you can go to the website performingartsinsider.com to find out how you can subscribe 12 times a year to get this handy, fantastic theater journal. It's expensive, but the people who use it, they renew year after year. Because as I said, it's really the only place you can get all this on, off, and off Broadway theater information in such a usable, handy, fact-checked way. It is the Bible of Broadway and remains so. So go to performingartsinsider.com to find out more. Well, we're going to finish up with Inside Broadway because we have a bit more to do on Dave's Gone By. We've got our Colorado Limerick of the Dam coming up. We have our story time coming up. We'll even have our Yesterday quiz. I know Cynthia just logged on. And by the way, happy birthday to Cynthia's son, who I believe works on the Long Island Railroad. But we we like him anyway. Oh, I know. Greeley Crimes and Old Times is coming up. So let's finish up our Inside Broadway segment. Oh, we're titling this one Inherit to the Wind, because the Broadway play The Inheritance has announced that it's going to be closing at the Ethel Barrymore Theater on March 15th. They've been trying with this one. It was a valiant effort, but this is a tough sell. It's a two-part, 6.5, 7-hour epic play about gay men in New York, and basically two generations of gay men talking to each other, and E.M. Forster's in there somewhere. It is a lot of, I mean, it keeps you interested all the way through. There's parts that are very touching, but at the same time, how do you get New York audiences to cough up the money and the time to watch not one, but two parts of this play by Matthew Lopez? And they tried, they really did, but it was just not making the money. What
about giving people candy? I'd be like, if you come back, you get some candy.
Oh,
Do you want more seltzer for your thing? It's getting.
Oh, I'm good, man. Thank you for offering.
You know, it's not flat.
Well, yeah, you put a little more seltzer in there. But here's the deal. I read there was an article in Forbes magazine. In fact, our friend of the Daverhood, Michael Portantier, was quoting it. But they're trying to figure out why it failed. Why? I mean, it not necessarily failed artistically. The critics said it was pretty good, but it had come off being very, very a real hit in London.
Did you drink it?
They loved. I will. It's good.
Spoopy.
Yeah. The London critics thought it was fabulous. It was a real cause celeb there. Why didn't that translate into an instant automatic hit here?
Yeah.
And what they were saying in the Forbes article, they did some pretty dumb arguments, but the interesting argument was that for London and English folks, there was something a little bit different and exotic about watching gay New Yorkers deal with their lives, deal with AIDS, deal with getting older, all that sort of thing. Whereas if you're in New York, you're just seeing everywhere. So there's nothing new and exotic for us to be watching these people. Whereas in London, it's like, oh my goodness, how exciting!
It's exotic. Yeah.
So that is one. I just unplugged it. Plug it maybe there. One moment, please. I'll be right back, folks. Oh,
Thank you, David.
yeah, hold on. 1 sec, folks. Taking a momentary break from the program. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so forgive me. And welcome, by the way, to James and Bruce and Trevor from my old radio station, and Mark and Carmen and Cynthia and Jeff. So that's one reason. And the other reason, people don't necessarily remember, but when Angels in America, the original one, came to Broadway, it was not a moneymaker. I don't think it paid back its backers. It was financially, quote unquote, in the red. It was because it was a 2-part show. It was expensive. It was a big deal. George C. Wolfe was directing. It got sensational reviews in New York as well as in London, but it was still kind of a tough sell. Angels in America did a lot better when it came back as a minted classic with Nathan Lane in it a couple of years ago. But that original thing was it came out of London, this enormous thing, and then it went to Broadway, and it was a cause celeb, of course, but it wasn't this big moneymaker either. So I wonder if The Inheritance is falling into that problem too. When it closes on March 15th, it will have run 46 previews and 138 regular performances at the Ethel Barrymore Theater. So yeah, it's a valiant effort, and do I recommend? I absolutely recommend you go see it. I have my issues with the play. I think it's everybody says it's kind of overwritten. It didn't have to be 7 hours long. And then there's a certain repetition factor. I talked about this when I reviewed it. There's a moment in the first act where they're talking about something, and it's touching, and it makes a lot of people cry. I went with a critic friend of mine who is gay and who was in New York during the 1980s and lost God knows how many friends to the AIDS plague. And he was just, crying buckets. And then they were digging again at the end of the first act in a more visual way. I'm like, you didn't need that first time. You're essentially repeating the same idea twice. Just get right to it, The critic and playwright part of me kicks in when I see stuff like that. But still, if you haven't seen The Inheritance, you have about a month to go see it at the the Ethel Barrymore Theater on Broadway. Oh, and I don't know if you heard this, but Jeanette Dubois passed away. If you remember, she died last week. She played Willona on TV's Good Times, and she even sang the theme song for Good Times. Why am I mentioning this on Inside Broadway? Well, she actually starred opposite Sammy Davis Jr. in Golden Boy on Broadway. And she did some theater beyond just that, even though she became a star thanks to Good Times. She was on TV's Love of Life, the serial, the soap opera, but she did Hot L Baltimore at the Mark Taper Forum in California. And that is where Norman Lear first saw her and cast her in Good Times. So a farewell to Jeanette Dubois. And there was also, and forgive me, I didn't make notes on this, there was a Jewish actress who died this past week who did a ton of theater, and she did Law and Orders, And if someone in the watch party or someone I can't go find it now. Forgive me for not finding the information about her or remembering her, but farewell to her, whatever her name is. If you know who I'm talking about, please message me immediately and I'll mention her name. But anyway, since we've been talking so much about West Side Story, let's hear a little bit of a West Side Story song from someone who's in this new revival, Isaac Powell in West Side Story doing Something's Coming. And then more of Dave's Gone By is coming up right after the song.
But now for West Side Story, which started previews on Tuesday and opens on Broadway February 6th. Here's Isaac Powell, who plays Tony, with Something's Coming.
Could be, who knows? There's something due any day. I will know right away, soon as it shows. It may come cannonballing down to the sky, gleaming its eye, bright as a rose. Who knows? It's only just out of reach, down the block, on a beach, under a tree. I got a feeling there's a miracle too, gonna come true, coming to me. Could it be? Yes, it could. Something's coming, something good. If I can wait, something's coming. I don't know what it is, but it is gonna be great.
Yes, a little song there, or part of a song from West Side Story, the new version, Isaac Powell singing it there to take us out of inside Broadway and into the rest of this program, Dave's Gone By, which, by the way, is partially brought to you by the fine folks at Hewlett Minuteman Press, the copy kings of Broadway in Hewlett, Long Island. The Torong family has owned and operated this branch of Minuteman since 1977. I believe, and they do fine quality work, whether you are doing, single-sided black and white copies, double-sided color copies, printing, binding, 4,500, I think, or 5,400. Sorry, I had a quick question there. Hewlett Minuteman Press. I have been dealing merrily with the Torong family and their staff since long before I was even doing this program. Anything I had a copy job, I was copying some of my plays or stuff I had to do for school. Hewlett Minuteman was there, and now they have been sponsoring this program since our very first one back in 2002. So if you need business cards, if you have wedding invitations to send out, if you've got to do giant presentations or spiral-bound books, or even perfect bound books, or if you need silk screening of your company's logo on clothing or sporting equipment or calendars or pen and pencil sets, they do it all. Hewlett Minuteman Press, so give them a call. 516-569-5577. 516-569-5577. And if you tell them Dave sent you, you get 10% off any job, big or small. Hewlett Minuteman Press, they are the copy kings. So, we have still to go on Dave's Gone By. Our guest is coming, Scott Siegel, the founder of Broadway by the Year and also the co-author of bunches of science fiction and entertainment books. So stick around for that. He's coming to be talking to Rabbi Saul Solomon. We will also have our Colorado Limerick of the Damned. We have Greeley Crimes in All Times. That's coming up soon too. But before we get to all of that, as promised, this is the tail end of President's Week. What better time than to do, I've got to get my music up there, for our Storytime segment. Now, if you know Storytime, it's a segment we've been doing for, I guess, 2 or 3 years now. And it has to do with me reading from a particular book, which is nice because it takes the onus off me of coming up with material to poke fun at. It started when I found a book in a service station for our Subaru that struck me as like, what the hell is this doing here? It was a book about a feudal German boy in Lederhosen trying to buy a cow for his family. I'm not kidding about this. And so ever since I thought, hey, let me do story time. Just read a bit of a story every week on Dave's Gone By. And we've got a classic for you today, folks. Oh, you do not want to miss this presidential story time.
Tell me a story, tell me a story, tell me a story. Remember what you said. You promised me, you said you would. You gotta give in, so I'll be good. Tell me a story, then I'll go to bed.
Yes, we'll be telling you this story, this presidential story. And by the way, welcome to James and Jeffrey and Richard and Chris and Diane from the local library, from whence I got this book for President's Day. And I showed this before, but I'll be showing this many, many times. It's, God, Just in Time, Abraham Lincoln by Patricia Polacco. Notice Lincoln not looking so hot there, not looking like he's been shot in the head, but looking like he's just had a little bit too much red meat for supper, if you know what I'm saying. Maybe a little too much sausage that's repeating on him. And these little Boy Scouts here that he might or might not be molesting, helping him out. So it's Just in Time, Abraham Lincoln by Patricia Polacco. Why don't we give this a read, shall we? We shall. And this is a Putnam book. So here we go. By the way, I have not pre-read this. So any jokes I make will be on the fly, and I really don't know what the hell is going to happen in this book. This is the first page? I guess it is. When Michael walked into the double sleeper on the Amtrak Limited bound for Washington, D.C., he said, quote, "This is too cool." "Way cool," Derek echoed. But when the boys were pulling their bedclothes out of their knapsacks, iPods, cell phones, and video games tumbled onto the floor. "Oh no," their grandmother scolded, because that's what grandmas do in books like these. "No electronics on this trip, no music, no texting, no tweeting, no emailing." "What are we gonna do?" the boys howled. "Do? Well, that's something of a secret. But first stop will be Harper's Ferry, West Virginia, when there is someone I want you both to meet." Derek slipped his lucky penny from his pocket. "I hope it's my new daddy." No, he said, "I can keep this lucky penny, can't I?" he asked. His grandmother smiled and nodded yes. And please note, just what a hot babe Grandma is. Let me see if I can show this properly here. On which hand this is? There we go. There she is. Yes, indeed. So well, she's got good skin. I will say that for her. Let's move forward into the Just in Time Abraham Lincoln book. The next morning, after they ate breakfast, the train stopped in Harper's Ferry. As it lurched to a stop, a very tall man met them on the platform. "Mr. Portafoy," their grandma sang out. "Here are the two grandsons I was telling you about. Mr. Portafoy has a marvelous collection of Civil War uniforms, rifles, and a wondrous display of photographs of Matthew Brady and his photographers." "Who's Matthew Brady?" Derek asked. "Oh, everybody knows that. He's the dude that took pictures of battlegrounds during the Civil War," Michael yawned. "Oh, we studied him in class." Mr. Portafoy, their grandma whispered to them, was, quote, "a true expert on the Civil War." The boys looked at each other, bored. Okay. After tea, Mr. Portafoy and their grandmother took the boys to the museum, where it was dusty, and the Matthew Brady photographs were black and white and definitely boring. One of President Lincoln and some general just standing there. Then they saw the weapons used in the Civil War, guns and cannons, bayonets and cannonballs. "Man," Michael explained, running from case to case, "it must have been cool to fight in that war." "Way cool." There was something like Beavis and Butthead at this point. I mean, use those voices instead. "Man, must have been cool to fight that war."
Why are you doing Beavis and Butthead, Bobo?
Way cool, way cool. Because that's what these guys are reminding me of at this point. "So you think the Civil War was cool, do you?" Mr. Portafoy mused, and looked at their grandma. Michael didn't answer. He was eyeing one particularly splendid uniform. Mr. Portafoy came up behind him. I really don't want to know where this is going. "I have some very authentic uniforms packed away in the archives. Would you like to try one on?" Yeah. And notice he's standing there. If nothing else, he kind of looks like Jerome Robbins, like choreographing this whole scene here.
Let's do it.
Could you bend over more, little boy?
A lot of people join.
Let's see. Oh, he's helping the boy on with his jacket. Yes. Jack on, jack off. For the first time since they come to Harper's Ferry, the boys smiled. Would we? Derek said. In the archive room, Mr. Portafoy opened an old chest and sang out 2 blue uniforms. Do you boys know which side used these uniforms? Union, Michael shouted out. From his history class, he knew that the war had been fought between the North and the South because they couldn't agree on slavery. He knew Northern soldiers wore blue and Southern soldiers called Confederates wore gray. Mr. Portafoy began buttoning up the uniform on Derek, spending extra time below the waist. And did you know that President Abraham Lincoln came right here to Harper's Ferry on his way to Antietam?
Oh.
What's Antietam? Michael asked. He knew about Abraham Lincoln. Antietam was one of the most unforgettable battles of the Civil War. Hey, Beavis, I have a video game about the Battle of Gettysburg, Derek chirped. I blew away 400 soldiers all by myself. I think I set a record. I can't do the butthead voice. I think I set a record. Well, Mr. Portafoy said thoughtfully, how'd you like to play something better than a video game? Oh, never trust an adult stranger when he asks you that question, kids. A real game, one that might even take courage. Can we keep the uniforms on? Michael asked. Well, if you must. Oh, yes, you have to keep the uniforms on. That's part of the game. Do we get swords and guns? Derek asked excitedly. No swords or guns. We don't get to shoot anyone? Michael whined. Well, I might shoot all over you, but it's very different. No, okay. Mr. Portafoy stooped down and took the boy's shoulders. You are going to Antietam just after the battle. You're going to eat what the soldiers eat, walk where they walk, see what they see. Then he looked up at a giant wooden door. When you walk through that door, you will be in the middle of the game. He took something gold out of his pocket. I'm giving you this pocket watch, Michael. Guard this with your life. When you hear the watch chime, you have 1 hour to get back to this door before sunset. And one rule, you cannot tell any of the other players who you really are, nor anything about your modern life. You are young soldiers, and it is 1862. Because when a stranger tells you to keep a secret from other grown-ups, you know that's a good thing too, kids. The boys nodded a cautious yes, and Mr. Portafoy nudged them through the door. Their grandmother was nowhere in sight. Oh, this is going real well. On the other side, they were standing right next to their hotel, but it was dark. Whoa, said Derek. The sun was shining. It was almost lunchtime. Now it's night, Beavis. Look, Derek, Michael whispered. No cars, no electric lights, only torchlights. A small horse-drawn wagon came trotting up and stopped right next to them. Where have you two been? An angry voice called out at them. I've been waiting for you for well nigh an hour. And if you've ever had a well nigh, you know how painful that can be.
No.
The boys climbed in and realized they were piled with stacks of glass photographer's plates and a great big standing camera. Derek, that's Matthew Brady, Michael whispered, even though he knew it was just a game. They stopped in front of a shop that read Photographic Studio. There was already a carriage and a group of soldiers waiting. Collect the equipment, the photographer barked, loading into the carriage.
It's too yelly.
They were all very yelly. Oh, but look who's here.
Yelly.
Look who's, finally, we get to the man himself. Did you just cover this book?
Is that when he's dead? Is he dead?
I don't know what the hell's going on there. But when they came into the store...
Was this written 1902?
No, they were talking about iPods. This is like written 2 years ago. When they came into the store, there was a very tall man in a cape and a tall hat. And when he removed his hat,
Superman.
it was... The boys gasped. Michael,
Use
Derek,
deodorant.
Beavis, where did they get someone who looked so much like Abraham Lincoln? Mr. President, Mr. Brady said as he gave him a slight bow, an honor. And I'd rather be honored than in her. But Mr. Brady, sir, your reputation. Can you do an Abraham Lincoln accent? Do you want to read this?
Okay, I'll do it. Okay. Which one?
Right there.
Mr. Brady, sir, your reputation precedes you. I understand that one of your photographers will photograph my meeting with General McClellan celebrating the Northern victory at Antietam.
Wow, very nice.
That's what he
You
sounds.
should debate Bloomberg, man. You'd be all over him.
That's right.
Oh,
You just tell me to kill it.
one of the best, sir. Wow, Michael thought. What a game. What a game. Oh, and just here. I don't know what's going on here, but something's going on here.
That's so wrong. Looks like Oscar Wilde.
Oscar Wilde was acromegaly or something.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell's up with Lincoln. In the carriage, as it jiggled along, see that we're doing some jiggle television, ladies and gentlemen.
Shaky, 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 shaky.
See, Fred Silverman's dead now. He would have liked this. 2 soldiers sent by General McClellan gave the boys small packets.
Of cocaine?
Well, understand this. As they jiggled along, the soldiers gave the little boys
Shaky, shaky.
something that they called jerky.
Oh, jiggle.
Yeah. It's the last you'll have for some time, boys, one said. Michael thought it tasted like shoe leather. And then the guy put it back in his pants and they went on. Then the 2 soldiers got to whispering about the battle, how it lasted one day.
Oh, David, look, I put the little thing, what's that little thing, the yellow thing shaking?
Oh,
See?
no, what? Oh, there, oh, it's so cute, the minion, yeah.
Minion.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was called. He's shaking.
Well, Rabbi Saul is coming in about 20 minutes, so he'll need a minion.
Oh, my God.
Then the 2 soldiers got to whispering about the battle, how it lasted only a day, how thousands of soldiers clashed in a cornfield, and how the Northerners met Confederates posted along a sunken road.
Give me my Lincoln.
The 2 soldiers were calling Bloody Lane. Bloody Lane is in my ears and in my eyes. Do, do, do. Of course, it weren't called that until 2 days ago, one trooper said, his voice breaking. The other soldier's eyes began to tear. And so he took out some Visine. Those boys walked across that cornfield as if they were invincible.
Lincoln?
But
I
Lincoln's not talking yet.
Okay.
Here's the understatement of the year. This is what Gibbs would say, you think, too. Those boys walked across that cornfield as if they were invincible. But they weren't. The soldiers sure talked real. Michael could feel his heart beating through his uniform, which is kind of gross, so they sewed it back in. Good thing it was just a game. Mr. Lincoln said not a word. By daybreak, they rolled into the encampment at Antietam. When Lincoln climbed out, he chucked Derek under the chin. Chuck, chuck. I've been watching you, boy. Oh, God. Here, honey, you want to do this?
I'm
It's
finding
Lincoln
war.
talking.
I'll give you it. I gotta find war.
All right. Lincoln
Okay.
says,
Lincoln
quote,
says, I've been watching you, boy.
oh.
You remind me of my boy, Willie.
So he's saying he reminds,
He reminds him
Of a
of
Willie.
You remind me of my Willie.
yes.
My Willie.
Why is Lincoln
good.
talking Southern? Lincoln would be anything but Southern. Wouldn't he talk like a Boston lawyer or something?
No.
I don't know.
He was really Southern. Nobody knows that.
Whoever this guy is, he's really good, Derek said. You there, boys! It was the Brady photographer, already here.
Oh, from the Brady Bunch?
That's right. He grabbed a camera out of the carriage. Alexander Gardner's the name, he barked. We gotta use this morning sun. So the boys hustled after him across a pasture. A battlefield, the pattern was always the same. First, by foot, Gardner would search for the picture he wanted, which is very, very difficult because you have to use your toes to go through all the pictures.
Search by foot.
Then he'd call for his camera, set the picture up, take it, and move on. He photographed a field of broken cornstalks littered with torn blue caps. He photographed a tree whose branches were exploding away. Here, boy, he'd shout, and Derek or Michael would run to hand him another glass plate. But where were the soldiers, Confederate or Union? What kind of game was this? They said the battle had been over for 2 days. Did the soldiers just go home when the game was over? But then the photographer moaned. Oh, I guess he was playing jerky too. Oh my God, over here! Through a small woods, he'd come upon a low hill with a shed on it. Michael saw what the photographer saw. Behind the shed were 3 soldiers, one sitting, one on his side as if he were swimming, stiff and not moving. I guess he was playing jerky also. And 2 wore blue, one wore gray. Beyond them in the distance were more soldiers lying still as if they were sleeping, and a soldier with a wagon moving around collecting them.
That's not good.
That is not good at all. And Michael sat down on the plowed ground, the wind knocked out of him. Derek, he whispered, I don't understand it, but this is no game. I'm just going to show a little bit of this.
That looks bad.
Yeah, that's not a good game.
Not a happy time.
Yeah, although it's not for Xbox One. And it's still pretty good.
Yeah.
And we're going to table that here because I want to have some time for Greeley Crimes and Old Times. But we will continue with more of Just in Time Abraham Lincoln on the next exciting edition of Dave's Gone By. So you know, you're going to tune in next week to see the exciting conclusion. What happened to Abraham Lincoln? What will happen to Derek and Michael?
Will it involve an avocado?
It may involve avocado jerky, if you know, yeah. And the thing about avocado jerky, it's the pits. Yes. What? I guacked that joke. Yeah, no.
I'm going to see if I can. I'm posting little emojis of like story time. I'm going to see if
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Anyway, you've been watching Dave's Gone By. We have so much more.
There's one doing tisk tisk.
And Joyce, I need your assistance for the next segment of Dave's Gone By. Before we bring in Scott Siegel at 11 o'clock to talk to Rabbi Saul Sullivan.
My phone?
I could actually, or I can use mine. I'm already sort of set up. It is. But here's, let's do, I'll leave it up to you. We can either do the Today Yesterday quiz right now, or, well, I know Cynthia and Jeff are watching.
Look at this, David. What? There's an avocado picking up his pit. I see.
Oh, yes, I see. It was very cute. Or let's get through Greeley Crimes and Old. Let's just
whatever you want. It's your show.
Okay. Greeley Crimes and Old Times is based on a couple of columns.
Kareem, don't like it.
Boom, 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 boom. In the Greeley Tribune, which is the newspaper that Joyce and I would read and get back when we were living in Greeley, Colorado a year or so ago. And one of the nice things about the paper is that they've got a sense of humor. So one of their columns is called Cop Log, and it has to do with funny phone calls that actually do come into the Greeley and Weld County Police Station in northern Colorado. And then another are nostalgic items from 100 years ago in the newspapers in town. So our friend Mike Peters will go through the newspapers of 1920 and look for things that were published back then that might strike us as odd or funny or nostalgic now. So those are the two columns in the Trib. We mix them together and call it Greeley Crimes and Old Times. Da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da. So are you ready for some crime and old time, my dear?
You didn't get the one that has the siren.
Oh, it's not on the red one? Oh.
Go fetch that.
Okay.
You're not a good prep.
Well, I'll start with an old one. I'll start with let's start with something old-timey, because I've got quite a lot of these.
I got it.
Here's an we'll begin with an advertisement.
Okay.
Eat wholesome bread. And they spell wholesome, H-O-L-S-U-M. Eat wholesome bread. It's better. Just ask your grocer. Unlike other breads, it's made clean, sold clean, and delivered clean.
Oh, wow.
I'm wondering, are the others so dirty, or are they kind of protesting too much? Was there a problem with wholesome bread way back in the day?
There was a problem with bread.
Where they delivered it clean, but the selling was not particularly clean, and the delivery, just bugs and excrement all over the place. Oh, yummy bread. Do it up. Hey, a representative of the Red Path Lyceum Bureau was in town last week, just in case you didn't know, seeing whom he might devour. He was going door to door, being very pushy, trying to find someone to represent them in a meeting next spring. Many of us are very happy he didn't knock on our door. And what's kind of interesting and telling about this Republican conservative newspaper back in the day, Red Path, I looked this up, was a circuit for lecturers and performers by such terrible radical people as Susan B. Anthony, Mark Twain, abolitionist Henry Ward Beecher, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and other troublemakers like that. Yeah, don't want them knocking on the Greeley, Colorado door. Heavens no. Oh, and also they had an editorial back then. President Woodrow Wilson, who claims he is right about everything he does. He says the Senate is wrong, the House is wrong, Everybody in the whole wide world has been wrong for the 7 years of Wilson's presidency. Sorry, but he is wrong now. Talk about, being a little bit anti-Democrat back in the day.
That's fake news.
Now, let's move on to President Week, present day stuff.
Present day?
Police responded to a convenience store on 23rd Avenue for 2 boys stealing condoms and trying to steal candy bars. How do you think this was resolved?
Wait a second, I gotta find my thing. Hold on.
Okay.
Where is it? Where is it?
Oh, what?
I don't have the one I want.
Okay. Well, what do you think the upshot of this was?
The
2 boys.
The boys had to buy it. You had to pay for it.
Yeah, the boys had already paid for the condoms and the candy. But the point is...
So then wouldn't you know? Like, if I sell you something, I would know.
But what I don't get is, how can you just be any age and buy condoms?
Yeah, there's no age limit.
I guess.
These boys might have been 20.
What about lube?
Yeah, I mean, they might have been not as old, not as young as
Yeah.
you think.
No, but, back in the day, parents used to send the kids to the grocery to get cigarettes.
I know.
It's like, buy mommy
No,
a
but
pack of cigarettes.
You can't get cigarettes. Children can't buy cigarettes.
Not
There's an
now.
age limit.
But back in the day, it was like
You could go and get morphine. Like, go to the store, get me some dirty syringes, some morphine. Get me some, scabies, and be like, yeah, okay.
But people, everybody looked the other way. They just assumed the kids weren't buying it
we
for
had
grown-ups.
a candy store on the corner that's now a deli, and you could buy. I never bought cigarettes,
Yeah.
but children could buy them for like 5 cents a cigarette. They would sell all sorts of stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm sure that it was a racket. Like the racketeering.
Well, they certainly made a racket when they were coughing. Oh, police responded.
Oh wait, hold on.
To a library. Wow. On 61st Avenue, we know the branch of that library.
60. Oh yeah.
For a man,
That's a nice library.
it is a very nice library, but not this particular moment. For a man who shoved another man in the children's section.
Let's see.
Which, if you've ever been shoved in the children's section, you know how uncomfortable that can be. But I mean, it's funny. It wouldn't have even made the thing. But what happened in the children's
Yeah,
section?
it's inappropriate. That library is very nice.
Yeah.
They had the first place I had. I don't like. I was there and it's cold.
Yeah.
And I don't
the
like
fireplace.
sugar.
Oh.
No, and they had Wolfgang Puck hot chocolate in the machine.
Yeah.
It was the best hot chocolate I've ever had. It was delicious. Like milk chocolate melted. That was good.
And you're right. It was a nice library. They had a little fire pit place.
Yeah. They redid it when we lived there. It was lovely.
That's what our library needs, is a fire pit.
No, it doesn't. Trust me.
All the people who work there be throwing each other in
Too
it.
much sacrificing.
Oh, and let's see, Chris and Eileen and
You
Keith
had about
tuned
20
in.
people join, including library people, and Rick just joined.
And my cousin Mark. So he says, good morning, cuz. I say good morning to you, Mark. We're doing Greeley crimes and old times. A caller.
Oh, wait. Do we have the phone call? I don't think we have the phone.
Oh, okay.
Wait.
Bring, 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 bring.
Oh, I got this. Wait, where's the phone?
Oh, yeah, you could do that. Do the pulley thing. Here we go. A caller.
Wait, okay.
Wanted to know if it was legal to spank his teenage daughter, who was, quote, being defiant, rebellious, and disrespectful.
Let's see.
No, where's the wah? Maybe the wah.
Oh, I don't have that one. You don't have the white
I heard
one.
it before you had the baby one,
No, you
didn't you?
don't have the white one.
Oh.
Could you go get the white one?
No.
Okay.
Let's just
Make
make do with what we have. Oh, well, yeah, having a little too much fun with that. So he wanted to know if it was legal to spank his teenage daughter. And in I should say, in related news, Harvey Weinstein wanted to know if he could spank her too, but for no particular reason. Police responded to a fast food restaurant on 11th Avenue for a very drunk man who was yelling. I kind of would have liked to have seen the scene for this. The man fell over as he was leaving and left before police arrived. You know, I know Ronald McDonald has fallen on some hard
No,
times.
it's the
but
grimace. It's the grimace. Grimace is on the opioids.
And you know, the Burger King is kind of staggering around a little bit. He's just gone with Harry and
I
Meghan.
thought he was with the Kentucky Fried Chicken guy now.
Oh, maybe.
There's too much crossover of fast food.
Yeah. Anyway, let's go to some old times here. A driver allegedly speeding was chased by a traffic officer for 2 blocks, reaching speeds up to 35 miles an hour with his auto. Well, he claimed he was going only 21 miles an hour. In speed court, he pleaded guilty, but then demanded a jury trial. Speed court does not have jury trials, so he was denied.
There you go.
Oh, and by the way, let's go elsewhere for a moment while we still have time. This is a story every once in a while, or pretty much on every episode of Greeley Crimes and Old Times on Dave's Gone By. We go elsewhere for 1 or 2 stories that are outside Greeley, Colorado, just because I find them amusing in some sort of way. And I hate to say this, but this is magnificent. We have, and I don't know what noise you'll make for this, but we have an irony alert. Can we have an irony alert song? Sound? Okay, that'll do.
You like, wait.
Yeah. All right, ready? Here's an irony alert that comes out of Chicago, Illinois. Yeah, well, sad news in the music industry this week. On Monday, Lindsay Lagistry, lead singer of a country music cover band, was struck by a car. The injuries from being run over were so bad, she died a couple of days later.
Oh, God.
Okay? Irony alert. The name of the band. Okay, this woman was struck and run over by a car. Name of the band, the country music band, Dixie Crush.
Oh, that's hard.
I know it's hard. Come on! All the names for a band where the lead singer's gonna get squashed by a car. Dixie Crush. Oh, I know. Shame on me. Send your complaint letters to davesgoneby@aol.com. davesgoneby@aol.com. We're doing our Dixie Crush saga. We have time literally for one more story on our Greeley Crimes and Old Times. Maybe we'll do an old timer here about Edward Dinney, owner of a milling company in New Raymer. He received a mysterious package, which he thinks might be a bomb.
Wait.
It came from a company in Des Moines, Iowa, so he wrote to Des Moines police asking if the company made bombs. He said he needed to know before January 1st when his life insurance will run out. Police said, no, the company does not make bombs.
What do they make?
It doesn't say that, but it should be okay. I think he opened the package and everything was fine.
Wow.
Well, we are proud every week on Dave's Gone By, every Saturday morning from 9 until noon or thereabouts, to offer a package of entertainment here on the Dave's Gone By Facebookio, Podcastio, Programmio of the stream with me, Dave Lefkowitz, my darling and adorable wife, Joyce, and all the stuff that we do on the show, which I told you is archived at davesgoneby.com. Plus, we have recent shows archived at archive.org, castbox.fm, and on our YouTube page. We're not done with the show by any means. As a matter of fact, I've got to bring in someone Jewish now, more Jewish even than I am, to talk to another Jewish person, a theater person, a musical person, a cabaret person, a fellow named Scott Siegel.
You want my phone?
Who is the fellow? I'll do my phone. Well, okay, then take the number off my phone or this here. Well, I've got to change anyway, so let me. I should never change. Yeah, well, I don't know if you can see him here.
You can see Chubbs.
All right. So Potato's going to hold the fort for a moment because I've got to go into the other room and get Rabbi Sal Solomon, who will be conducting an interview with Scott Siegel, the founder of Broadway by the Year. He's also an author of many books on entertainment, many science fiction books as well. So let us begin with a bit of Rabbi Sal's type music. And he'll be here in just a moment talking to Scott Siegel. Shalom! Shalom, my friends. Shalom, my enemies. This is your old pal, Rabbi Sal Solomon, the founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And I am thrilled and delighted and excited to be talking to our special guest in the Daverhood. He is an author, a critic, and over the past few years, also an impresario, whatever that means. This is a guy who had a really good idea. The idea was, hey, let's get some Broadway singers and we'll put them on a nice stage with a nice band and they're going to sing songs from Broadway, but very specifically each time we'll take a year or two in Broadway musical theater history and we'll tell about that year and we'll tell about the shows that opened that year and they will sing the songs from those shows. This is, I don't know if it's $1 million idea, but it's certainly been a successful and workable idea for this man who is on the telephone with us. His name is Scott Siegel, and we are delighted to have him in the Daverhood with us. Shalom, Scott. How are you doing?
I'm good. Shalom to you, Saul. How are you?
I'm all right. I mean, you know, I've got all these aches and pains and hernia problems and prostate problems. How are you?
Pretty good, thank you very much.
Well, actually, I make a joke about, well, not such a joke about my medical condition, but maybe the first thing to ask is, how are you doing? Because the New York Times did this whole story about you when you were recuperating from what, were you hit by a car or something, or what was it?
No, it was sort of a Steve McQueen moment. I had a major city bike accident. I broke my pelvis, and I was in the hospital for 19 days, and I have 4 screws holding the middle of me together. But
well, you know what?
I'm fine.
I've been married 37 years. That's more screws than I've been getting, I'll tell you. Little comedy there, right here in the Daverhood. So, but you're feeling well. I mean, do you feel like when it's cold, do you feel that in where the screws are?
No, I don't. In fact, I asked the doctor if I was going to have, alarms going off if I, went through a metal detector, and he said, no, it's you're going to be unknown unless you tell him. I'm in good shape. Thank you.
Thank you, Mazel Miklik. That is fabulous. Now, you're also in good fighting trim and ready for what's going to be happening Monday night at Town Hall in New York City, which is going to be the latest iteration of Broadway by the Year. I told them what's in it, but what is this specific Broadway by the Year going to be about?
Well, this season of Broadway by the Year, you described Broadway by the Year very accurately for what it's been for the last 19 years, but this is the 20th anniversary season of Broadway by the Year, and so we're doing something to celebrate the 20th anniversary season. And so what we're doing is taking the last 20 years of Broadway history, during which time Broadway by the Year has been in existence, and breaking it into 4 different concerts, because that's the season of Broadway by the Year. There's 4 concerts. This is the first one on Monday, and each one is going to be the 5 years running. So we're going to be 2000 to 2004 on this show on February 24th, and we're going to be honoring the songs that were either born on Broadway during that 5-year period or appeared in a revival, so that we can also honor the older music, which are constituency always loves. So we have, in fact, out of 21 songs that are going to be in this concert on Monday night, 9 of them are going to come from revivals, and 12 of them are going to come from songs that originated on Broadway during those 5 years.
Does that speak to perhaps, I don't want to editorialize on this, but the fact that maybe a lot of the musicals that have opened on Broadway in the past 20 years are kind of shitty, and you need to go into the revivals just to have enough to do a full evening?
No, it doesn't really reflect that, but we wanted to make sure that the audience, which has usually come for the last 80 to 100 years of Broadway, wasn't stuck entirely in the last 20 years, because they enjoy the music from the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, and so on. So we wanted to have some of that scattered through the show in each of the concerts, so that we'd be reflecting what Broadway by the Year has always been about, in addition to honoring and celebrating the 20 years that Broadway by the Year has been in existence.
So what's an example of a song or two from a show or two that you will be doing this Monday night?
We'll be doing, for instance, from that 5-year period, shows like Avenue Q, shows like The Full Monty, like that. But we'll also be doing revivals of things like 42nd Street, and oh my goodness, even this is going to be kind of fun and a little bit of a surprise, but because we're doing shows from the last 20 years, one of the things that we thought would happen, and has in fact, is that we would have somebody who was in an original show and singing a song that they originated on Broadway in that show. So we have Max von Essen, who's a Tony nominee for
Sunset Boulevard.
Paris, but
yeah.
No, he wasn't in that. He made his Broadway debut in Dance of the Vampires, one of the most famous flops of all time. But he got recognized for it. He was one of the few that survived the wreckage of that show, and he's going to sing the song that he originated on Broadway in that show, called Sarah, which is actually a great song. It's kind of got lost in the shuffle because the show was so bad. But
it was pretty funny, actually. But okay, but that's, and don't you have? Isn't one of the other performers on this Monday Tova Felcher, the Jewess?
Yes, yes, indeed. And she's a four-time Tony nominee. In fact, a 6-time Tony and Emmy nominee. So she's between movies, television, and theater, she's a triple threat. And yeah, she'll be singing from a revival of Gypsy. And it's a great honor to have her. She's one of the things we also wanted to do during this 20 years is bring people back who've been in Broadway by the Year during the last 20 years and have had an impact on the series itself. So, and Tova has been in it before. It's very gracious of her to come back and perform in it again, because believe me, we can't afford her otherwise. She's doing a very generous thing to be in the show.
So let's take it backward. We're talking with Scott Siegel. I want to talk more specifically about Broadway by the Year, but let's even roll it backward. Did you love the theater from a young age? Was it much later? Because you were more of a movie guy, and it wasn't really until you met Barbara, your wife, that Broadway. Well, you do tell the story. Well, I can just start.
Well, you've been Googling it.
Yeah. That's why I have the tissues and the Vaseline. Yes.
Well, I was more of a movie guy, and Barbara was the theater maven originally. But I have as so many of us have very specific memories of growing up with the theater, because I grew up in a bedroom community in Belleville, New Jersey, and came in. I vividly remember seeing Fiddler on the Roof with my family, and a big watershed moment was actually a school trip in to see Man of La Mancha before it went to Broadway, when it was in a tent downtown, and I was just completely knocked out. So I loved the theater. I just never saw a lot of it when I was growing up, just enough to hook me. But it was Barbara who really give me my baptism. When I came back to New York and we got married, we would go to the theater all the time. Became theater critics, and Barbara was chairperson of the Dramatist Nominating Committee, and on the nominating committee for a total of 18 years. So we saw about 300 shows a year, not counting my own. And so we saw everybody and saw everything, and so but by the time it came that I had the opportunity to do Broadway by the Year 20 years ago, and then I knew what I wanted to do. I knew how I wanted to do it, and I knew who I wanted to have in it. So.
Well, let me stop you there, because again, I want to roll. I want to just jump right to the present so quick. I want to hear a bit more, especially since Dave, who is the producer and host of this program, has been a critic for many years too. Did you and Barbara end up co-writing or doing like a he said she said review column at some point? Did you ever do that?
Yes, we reviewed. It wasn't a he said she said, but because we both agreed so much. But it was. But we co-byline, a shared byline, and we wrote for everything from Show Business Weekly to Backstage to everything. We were on radio together. We did so we were, and we continue to be columnists and cover theater. We were doing that for more than 20 years, well more than 20 years, and. So yes, we've been writing about, and also movies, theater, and cabaret for all that time, and it's been quite a joy to do that together.
Well, what is the writing process when two people have to collaborate and work like that together? Do you sort of talk about it, and then one person puts it on paper, or do you give her a topic and she does that, and you do your topic, and then you mush them together? What do you do?
Well, it started with books, really, because we've written 48 books together, and each project requires a different take on it. And for instance, when we did the Encyclopedia of Hollywood, which was a big 400,000-word opus, we would just sort of divide up. You take this, I'll take that, and we all wrote separate parts, of the book. When it comes to, and about half of our books were fiction, we've written a whole lot of novels that have been published, and that would be different. We would sort of divvy up, we would outline it together and then write separate chapters, and then we would edit and revise each other's chapters. So it was a process. But when we started doing this, people said that we would end up on the roof with machine guns because we would end up wanting to kill ourselves and kill everybody else. But it happened to not be that way, thank God. And we have this ability to finish each other's sentences, so it's a very close relationship, and I think it's kind of seamless. People can't see it in the books. I can't see one voice or another voice.
But you can tell. Can you each tell, if you were to pick up a book that you co-wrote 25 years ago, could you point to what she wrote, or is it seamless to you guys in retrospect?
Well, look, we remember what we fought over. In most cases, we can't remember writing any of it. But it seems like who wrote that? But for the most part, it's only certain moments that we can remember. Oh, that you did that, or I did that. But the vast majority of it just seems like we can't remember unless it's very recently.
Well, let me ask also, what would you say are her strengths as a writer versus your particular strengths as a critic and writer and novelist? Is there something she brings to the table versus something that you bring to the table?
I'm a more generalist. I'm more plot-oriented, and how does it all go together? And she's more meticulous on the details. So happily we complement each other's.
Well, I'm sure you must complement each other, because to just knock each other is not very nice. Kidding.
It works out well. It's just that we have our own strengths and weaknesses, and that's how we help each other make for better fiction and better nonfiction.
Now, did you have a creative college degree? I mean, did you go for the arts? Did you go for administration or stuff? Or where did you go and what did you do?
I went to Rutgers University, and I was an English major. But within the English department, there was film within it. So I studied film within the English department as well as English, and had a Rockefeller Fellowship to graduate school in American civilization. So it was American film, and I had a real interest in Western movies and on all that stuff. But which led me to actually write my first books, which were Western novels. The first 4 books I wrote were official regulation westerns in the Louis L'Amour vein, and So, and I was you know how actors will remember all the reviews. So as a writer, I remember my first review only, and it was mostly because it was used on the cover of actually the first 6 books were westerns, and the first 2 didn't have that, but I had a series called the War Hunter series that was published in paperback, and on the cover it said, Siegel writes of a brash and brutal old West where good men die and bad men die faster. St. Louis Post-Dispatch. I'll never forget that.
That's pretty cool.
But,
That's so. I have to ask you, where the hell do you find the time to write that? Maybe you guys have 48 books between you. Well, some of them are encyclopedic, about the American film and Hollywood and celebrities, and then just where the hell? I mean, do you spend 5-7 hours a day just at your desks writing?
Oh, easily. It's. I mean, yes. The answer is it's both a happily less lonely profession. Once Barbara's joined me doing it, I did 9 books on my own. Barbara did 2 books on her own, and the rest of the 48, minus those 11, were done together. And the 11 that we did together were more fun because writing is a pretty lonely profession. But yeah, it's happily, none of them were, huge bestsellers. So it's volume in order to make a living. But
well, wait a minute. That also brings up the question of: do you make the living off royalties or from advances, or how do you guys live in New York? With the expenses and everything that New York entails, and survive and eat and have good times.
Well, we wrote pretty successfully. I mean, a number of the books did quite well. We had had one book that had, I think, 17 printings.
Oh.
It was and that one brought us a lot of royalties. We had books, celebrity biographies that we've written that were serialized and brought in money or were sold overseas. And foreign presses picked them up, so we got royalties from that. So between the advances and the royalties, and writing fast, because you can't take 11 years to write a book and make a living doing it. So we were fast writers, and one with flowing, we always had books under contract, to follow the ones that we had. But at a certain point, when we started being critics, it was more fun. Being critics and going out.
And you make so much money as a theater critic.
Well, I often joke that every decision that we've made in our careers, going from being book writers to being theater critics to being theater producers, has brought us less and less of an income. The next thing is to be poets, I think. But but we love what we do, and we find a way to make it work financially to keep it going. But it is hard. When you're working in the arts in New York City, it is a hard road to hoe. But we do the best we can. We've been self-employed doing this for since the mid to late 80s. Mid to late 80s.
Yeah. Well, Mazel click on that. So, but now I'm assuming that you don't just do the Broadway by the Year concerts. I think you're sort of like Neil Berg. You put together lots of different kinds of concerts all over the place. And that should be a pretty decent, steady, which is the most important thing, actually, the steady and decent income for you by now. Is that true?
Yes. I mean, the Broadway by the Year is 4 concerts. We do a show also at Town Hall called Broadway's Rising Stars that'll have its 14th annual event in July. We do it every July, where we introduce people coming out of performing arts schools from all over the country and launch them in a kind of national showcase into their careers. Among the people who've come out of that are Ali Stroker, who won the Tony Award last year from Oklahoma. The girl in the wheelchair is usually how people remember her. But she was a rising star that we launched her career. There were 3 of our guys who were in the original cast of Hamilton, and when it was on Broadway, we had 3 in the original cast. Beautiful, when it opened on Broadway, across the board, lots and lots of shows. I could go chapter and verse with that. We're going to have a movie star in our among our alumni come this summer. One guy, Anthony Ramos, who you could have seen in the Oscars. He was the guy who did the shout out to Lin-Manuel Miranda and he's going to be starring as Usnabe in the Heights, in the movie of In the Heights. That opens this summer, and he was one of our rising stars, and he's going to be huge. He was in A Star Is Born as a featured player.
Oh wow!
This last year. So anyway, that's this summer. So we do that every year, and now I do about 5 shows a month on average at Feinstein 54 Below that I produce, write, and host, and direct. In fact, I have one of them tonight. I'm doing a Sinatra show that we do twice a month. There, it's called Frank Sinatra: The Second Century, and that's tonight at 9:30. And it'll be the 35th edition of that show that we've done. And I do another show twice a month called 54 Sings Broadway's Greatest Hits. And when we do the next one of that, which will be next Saturday, the 29th, Leap Day, at 9:30 at 54 Below. That'll be the 60th edition of that show that we'll be doing. So to answer your question, yes, the steadiness comes from there where I do that. And I've also, and speaking of being a rabbi, I also do shows periodically at Temple Emmanuel Stryker Center. And we've done 2 editions of Jewish Broadway. We've done the Jewish Oscars. We've done the Jewish Tony Awards.
Jewish Ice-capades. We need Jewish Ice-capades. This is exciting. But let me ask you, how do you have time to write now? If you are coordinating all these things, right, and then you have to just make a zillion phone calls and emails to plan and book and make sure this actor can show up and the band is this and that and the contracts and everything else and the insurance. How do you have time to still write? Or do you?
Well, we do. We write columns for a website, and as a regular, it's called the Siegel column that we write, and so we do that. Not wildly often, but we keep our foot in on that, and we're members of the Outer Critics. So we're voting on winners and all that stuff too. But the book writing has stopped. We did a second edition of the Encyclopedia of Hollywood, and it was funny because the editor called up and said, we'd like a new edition. I said, are you kidding? I've never said this as an author. I said, why do you want another? Everything is online. Why do you want to do that? Basically, it's because they wanted to have a new edition that they could put online. So with that, we would end up doing the research so that they would have an online presence. But that was the last thing that we did, was the second edition of the Encyclopedia of Hollywood. So the book, it's sort of like we've been there, done that. I don't think I really need to do that anymore. And the criticism and the writing, we enjoy doing. It's fun. We still go to the theater. We still want to write about it and have our opinions out there. But otherwise, it really is a full-time job doing the producing, because we literally have at least one show every week somewhere, if not 2. So it's like, for instance, we have the Saturday night tonight, the Sinatra, and then Monday the Broadway by the Year, and then throughout. And we're booked with shows through next October.
So when you did the first Broadway by the Year, Scott Siegel, when you did that first, was it a town hall? Or was it in a much smaller venue, or where was it?
No, I know. It was a town hall. I mean, I started out in the 1,500-seat theater doing my first show, which is nuts. And that happened because I was doing a film class. It was actually the biggest film class in New York, because town hall was so large. We had about 700 people in the film class, and the people running town hall were aware of the fact that I was a theater person and a movie person, all that, as well as and a movie person. And they just, at that particular time, Town Hall was doing opera. They were doing third world music. They were doing a lot of jazz. But they were on 43rd Street at the time, in the theater district, but they had no real theater presence in their programming, and they wanted to have it. And they asked me to come in for a meeting, see if I had any ideas. And I suggested the idea for Broadway by the Year. And it's such a great idea. Why don't you do it? And I said, well, listen, I got to tell you the truth. I've never produced anything at all, not even a puppet show in the backyard for my parents. I haven't done anything, like that. But they said, generous as they were, they said, we see how you are with an audience, with our film class. You're a smart guy. It's your idea. Why don't you do it for us? So they gave me the opportunity to do it. And I'll never forget the first one. It was the first 2 were an experiment, and they had a series called not just jazz, where it was sort of a potpourri of different kinds of things in addition to jazz. And we were doing the Broadway musical of 1943, was the experimental show to see if this would work. Yeah. And I had I only had 3 people in it, and a piano player, the same Ross Patterson, the musical director for all 20 years now of Broadway by the Year. He's been with us the entire time, bless his heart. And a bass player. So it was just 5 people and me, and I hired Jason Gra, Heather McRae, and Sally Mays were the 3 people who I chose to be in this.
Can I just break in and mention that both Jason Gra and Sally Mays are friends of the Daverhood. They've been on this program. So you've got good taste in people, I got to tell you.
Well, thank you. I like to think that that's been one of the keys to the success of the series, has been that talent picking. But
so you got them. You got those 3 performers. You got the pianist and the bass player. Yeah.
And the format, while the show tomorrow on Monday night is going to have 43 people in it, and it's evolved through to include dance and a chorus and all sorts of other stuff. That's really a show more than just a concert. Over all these years, it's developed in different stages along the way. But that first show, I was going on stage because the format, even from that 3 performers to 43 performers, the format has essentially always been the same, just variations on it, with me going out and introducing everything and hosting it and talking about the history of Broadway in addition to setting up each individual song. So I'd never done that before, and I'm not a performer. I never aspired to be one, but I just thought this was a nice format for it, because I am a little bit of a ham. So
what Jew isn't? Yeah.
Secretly, but 5 minutes before the show, I peeked out into the house from the stage left, and I saw it was a pretty good house. It was pretty full, and I started to shake and quiver. I became terrified because I had stage fright. Yeah. And I can't go out there like that. I was literally shaking. I mean, it was like a 9 on the Richter scale, and I had to talk to myself out of it and say, "You can't go out there like that." And I said, "Well, how am I gonna do it?" And basically, I just said, "It's not about me. I hired these great people. And people are coming to see them. They don't even know who I am. And it's great music, and they're great talents, and that's who they're coming to see." And I just took myself out of the equation, and I calmed down, and I've never been nervous since, because I never think it's about me. And
it isn't even necessarily about the folks, because you always get good people, but it's about the title. You have a high concept idea. Broadway by the Year, come here. Talented people do. So whether it's Tova Felcher or Jason Gra or Sally Mays or Brent Barrett, or whoever else you've had over the years, it's like people are coming for that idea and knowing that they're going to get a quality show under that idea.
Initially, yes.
Yeah.
Initially, yes. I think it was the idea. Sparked people's interest. It was a different kind of way to approach nostalgia, if you will, and their love of Broadway music. And that first show, we did a good job. It was a fun show, and it worked. And then the second show in that experiment, the New York Times came to it, shockingly, and Stephen Holden of the New York Times, and he reviewed the show. It wasn't a money review, but it was a positive review, and it was enough for Town Hall to say, "Hey, we've got something here. This is really good." And then more people came. It was pretty full. So they decided, let's make a series out of it. I said to them, "Okay, if we're going to make a series out of it, let's give it a name and let it be separate from all that, the jazz
and other
jazz show." Yeah. And so I came up with the name Broadway by the Year. So the second year we had the name Broadway by the Year, and we had subscriptions separate to that. So we had subscription lines. And the New York Times, Stephen Holden came to the first show of that one, and that was a money review. It was a all-out rave, and from there the subscriptions sailed, and we've had a real core audience. In fact, after the 17th season, Town decided to have a party for the original subscribers, not really knowing how many we had. And it turned out we had almost 200 original subscribers after 17 years who had been with us from the very beginning. And it's sort of like being having season tickets to the New York Giants. People don't want to give up their seats.
Well, yeah,
and they give them to their children, and I mean, they won't because and when they come for the concert, it's like they know who's sitting around them. They know everybody. It's like a little camp, for Broadway lovers coming, and there are of course many more people who would join, as subsequent subscribers over the years and survivors, and it's been it's a real family of people because it's not something tourists come to because they don't know about it. It's real theater lovers. It's an insider kind of thing. So that we could do something like I mentioned with Max von Essen singing a song from Dance of the Vampires, and it's like, oh, that's cool, as opposed to what the hell is that? So
it's an in-the-know crowd, and this is an in-the-know crowd, but the place is pretty big. What is it? Is it 1,100 seats? Is it how many seats is Town Hall? Huh?
1,500.
1,500 is like bigger than the biggest Broadway theater at this point, and you fill it. Well,
not
Gershwin's bigger,
but it's among the biggest. It is among the biggest. It's not a Broadway house, but the expression "there isn't a bad seat in the house" was actually coined for Town Hall. It was the first the theater of its size designed without any visual obstructions. So there are 800 seats downstairs, 700 seats upstairs, and Town Hall will be 100 years old next year. It's a national landmark now, and it's a very special place to be a part of and be part of that history. It has a great history, and part of the history, is talking about this history of Broadway by the year and how it connects to Broadway itself. We brought to audiences Stephanie J. Block, who's now a big star.
The Cher Show,
job. Her first, the Cher Show, it was her second time. She had a Tony Award for that, but she'd been Tony nominated before, dropped Best nominated. But she had her first job in New York at Broadway by the year. And Jessie Mueller, her first job after the debacle that was, she was in, oh gosh, what's the title? It's escaping me.
Was it a Wild Horn musical? Or what was it?
It was a musical with, oh God, with that long title from 1960.
Wait, 1960s? Jessie Mueller? What?
No, that was a revival. It was a revival. I can't. Anyway, I'm sure everybody listening will know what I'm talking about, and I can't because I can't think of it at the moment. But anyway, she was in it, and she got a lot of great attention. But we had her in her first job after that show in Broadway by the year,
and of course before the Carole King musical, yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, well before that. Well, the thing is, we helped put a lot of people on the map. People like Nancy Anderson was in it all the time, became very well known through it. Noah Racy after Never Gonna Dance.
Yeah, I mean, the roll call is extraordinary. I mean, exceptional. As a matter of fact, that leads to an interesting question now. Now that your Broadway by the year is so entrenched and it's a hot ticket and you do it 4 times a year, and everybody, I assume, in the theater and cabaret community wants to be a part of it, how do you decide to get the 4 or 5 or 6 or 48 people on a particular show? Because now it's not just, oh, could you please do this, and here's what we're paying, and would you come in? Now it's sort of like, well, there'll be hurt feelings if you don't ask this particular person. Or they'll, hey, come on, why didn't you ask me? How do you choose time to time whom you're going to pick?
Well, it's often just a question of availability. I mean, everybody would like to do it if they're free to do it, so it's somebody who's starring in a show 8 times a week, and their Monday off is very precious to them. They don't always like. For instance, there were a lot of people, Sutton Foster, who we wanted to get right away. She wouldn't do it while she was in Thoroughly Modern Billy, but as soon as Thoroughly Modern Billy was over, she came and did it. So it's like that. But my favorite story about getting Joyce to be in it was, I mentioned Jason Gra. He was in the very first one. And I mentioned that only because I wanted to get Liz Calloway to be in Broadway by the year. And I went to see her. She was doing a show at Joe's Pub then. And I went backstage to ask her after the performance if she would do Broadway by the year. But before I could ask her, she said, oh, my friend Jason Gra was just in this thing you did at Town Hall, and it sounded like so much fun. Can I do it? So
that's the way it works.
When they ask you, right.
Do you ever try and match? Do you ever know, hey, I know that my next one is going to be from, I don't know, 1970. So we know we're going to be doing a song or two from Company. And do you ever think, wouldn't it be great to get this person to do another 100 people? Do you ever think like that?
Of course, yeah.
Oh,
like, for instance, in the next Broadway by the year, when we're doing 2005 to 2009, Ragtime was revived during that time, and Quentin Earl Darrington, who played Kohlhoff Walker, was in it, and he's going to be in it. So I tried to pinpoint him to be in that one, and he's going to be in that one. So yeah, we try to get match it up as much as we can. The real key, one of the real keys to the success of the series and the stuff they do at 54 Below and everywhere else is simply matching singer to song. So you have the right people singing the right music, so that you're not doing stupid stuff on stage, which I've often seen. It was one of the things I learned I'm not going to say where I saw it, but there were so many times I would see in these one night off concerts in different venues where they would have people do things that they were not supposed to do. It's not what they were great at, and they would have them do these other things. I said, well, people should do what they're best at. Let them do what they excel at, or something that they never get a chance to do that they're really good at. Like having a comedian, some kind of like Eddie Corbett, who's a great dramatic actor, but doesn't get a chance to do it, to have a chance to do a ballad, and knock it out of the park. So it's that combination of letting people do what they really can do and do it well.
Well, all I'm saying is when it comes time for the year, I'm not sure if it was 67 or what year it was, but if you're going to be bringing back the Zulu and the Zeta, and you need the man to do The Way of the World, the Tears of the World, this is your guy. Yeah, just give me a call. I've been practicing for years. It's the way of the world. See, I got it. I'm an ex-Menashe Skolnick. You know it. Or I could do the Lou Gossett Jr. parts too. I'm very flexible that way.
You're very versatile. I can see that.
Now we're speaking with Scott Siegel. He is, of course, the entrepreneur who is putting together, as we said, not just the Broadway by the Year that's taking place on Monday night at Town Hall, but he's doing a Sinatra show tonight. What's the one tonight?
Sinatra tonight at 9:30 at 54 Below,
yeah.
And then the first of our four Broadway by the Year concerts on Monday night at 8 o'clock at Town Hall. And the nice thing about Town Hall is, Broadway is so expensive now that Town Hall being the People's Hall, it's always been a very progressive place that's there for the community, and this is a town hall presentation. It's not a rental. They keep the prices very reasonable, and you can see this full concert with. We're going to have 26 tap dancers in our opening number, and Town Hall has never had an assemblage of tap dancers of this size to do that.
And they have to replace the floor. Yeah.
Well, yes, they will have to do some work on the floor afterward. I've been told, because it will scratch it up a bit. But it's going to be an incredible opening number for our 20th season, and the tickets are like $55, $60. You're going to get them for less. And for this full concert with Broadway stars like Tova Felcher, like Max von Essen, and many more who are in this. We have a fabulous cast. Danny Gardner is in the show. He was in Dames at Sea. He's going to be choreographing and leading the dance numbers. We have everything from the producers to number in it to Moving Out, the Billy Joel musical, to all sorts. I mean, it's such an interesting mix of music from so many different kinds of shows that it'll be a little bit like the weather in the Midwest. If you don't like it, wait 5 minutes, it'll change. So.
And by the way, I want to let people know that if they want to follow you and go to more than just the 4 Town Hall subscription series that you do at Broadway by the Year, but follow the other things that you and Barbara put together and do, these other concerts all over the place. The website is SiegelPresents.com, and it's Siegel, SIEGEL, presents.com. So bookmark it on your computers so that maybe if you can't go tonight or it's already sold out Monday night, or you can't do some of these other things, there'll be something that they are doing that you're going to want to check out, be it at 54 Below, be it at Town Hall, so they can follow your stuff. SiegelPresents.com. So let me ask you just a couple of quick more questions here with Scott Siegel. And you probably don't want to answer this question, but if you had to pick your favorite musical of all time, what would it be?
No, I don't mind doing that because it's always, I think, the same for everybody. It's the one that hooked them in the theater in the first place that made them want to go back and try to get that feeling again every time they go. And every now and then you get it, but mostly you don't. But it was Man of La Mancha. I mean, that just, you know, it just spoke to me, and it was so thrilling to watch. And so it's, you know, it's sort of like Bosco, you know. It's the thing you had when you were a kid that you remember forever. You know, you love it forever.
Even though You Bet is better, but yeah. So also, then I want to ask in terms of, because you, by what you're doing, I mean, Broadway doesn't eat your head. Broadway's making zillions of dollars now, but you're also doing what is essentially a small cabaret, duplex 88's Rose's Turn kind of thing that's just gone on to a grand scale. What would be your ideas to help save and nurture cabaret in New York? Because it's not, you know, it has certain places where it can be done, but not a lot at this point.
Well, the nightclub world is always has its ups and downs, and we've been following it from, you mentioned 88's. I mean, 88's was our favorite club of all time, and we used to go there. We were there the night it closed. No, I really came to say goodbye to. But it was it has its ups and downs. It changes all the time. I'm sort of in the middle place now because Green Room 42 is doing pretty well, and I think they just expanded and opened a second room further downtown. And I'll be doing shows there, a belting show once a month starting in April, May, and June. I'll have one show a month there. So they're to nurture it. I mean, the nice thing about the nightclub stuff is that you don't need a lot of money to do it, especially if you're doing it in a smaller place as a performer, as an entertainer. And it's a great way to as Irv Rabel, who used to run the 88's, you know, say, when you do a cabaret show, you're the star of it, you know, and and there are no chorus people in cabaret. Everybody's a star because you've got to hold stage for an hour, and it's a great training ground for performers. And hopefully, some places are more expensive. Cafe Carlisle and 54 Below is expensive, so it's harder to go see that unless you're saving up or it's a birthday or something. But otherwise, places like Don't Tell Mama and the Duplex are really inexpensive to go. They're less than a movie, really, these days. And it's a great place to see and nurture talent on the way up. And we continue to go to those places and look for talent also, and try to help people make the transition from theater to cabaret. Or very often, what we really do at 54 Below a lot is take theater people who are working in the theater all the time, but are in between shows, and we give them a place to show the flag and say, "Hey, here I am. This is me, you know, and this is what I can do." And
actually, let me ask you also about posting your own flag, because back in the day when Broadway by the Year was first starting, you guys used to be outside Broadway theaters handing out flyers to get people to come to the show. Now the show kind of sells itself between word of mouth and everybody with subscriptions. But how do you still, if you publicize what you do, what do you now do a lot of social media? How do you get people to come to the other things that aren't Broadway by the Year?
Yeah, I mean, well, no, you have to do it for Broadway by the Year, too. I mean, and I would like to not get the impression that you can't get into Broadway by the Year. Oh. You have to have a subscription. We sell half the houses is single ticket buyers, people who are just coming to one show or coming that night and trying it out, or they can't make all the shows, so they come when they can. So by all means, if you want to just come and try it out, don't feel that it's a subscription sellout thing. It's not. We have room for people to come, so please come on Monday.
Great.
But and the same thing, yes. But social media has sort of replaced the flyering. You mentioned the New York Times article about me about this time last year, and another time I was written up in the Times was exactly for as sort of being the flyer king, flyering.
Well, it was a brilliant idea. You stand outside people coming out of a Broadway musical, and you say, "Hey, if you like this kind of thing, we're doing this at Town Hall. Come see it." I mean, it was genius.
Yeah, no, I developed quite a lot of lung power. In the beginning when I started doing this, I could barely do it because I'm not. My voice was not trained to shout and bark, but I learned how to do it, and I did it all seasons, all the time, in all kinds of weather. And my favorite story of that, I was flyering the New York City Pops at Carnegie Hall, and it was raining, snowing, sleeting, blowing. It was the worst night of weather imaginable, and I was out in front, and the people who were running wouldn't let me stay under the overhang, some rule that they had, which was very annoying. But I'm out there in this wind-swept, cold sweat. It was horrible. So I'm out there and flying. But I was go to these things so that I'm there at the beginning, and then I would run out during the applause at the end, so I'd be in places people came out to fly again. So the thing is over, and I get out there, and I'm out there again, and this guy comes out, and he says, "Oh my God, you're out here in this way. I saw you come in and going out. What's your name? Why are you doing that?" I gave him my name and my address. He sent me a check for $1,000. He was so impressed that I was out there in that weather flying. And then you talk about how you make a living. You need the support of strangers and the kindness of strangers in order to get through it and get some support like that. But the thing is, it didn't necessarily work for me because I would stand out on Saturday mornings outside temples and tell people, "Hey, do you want a bris?" I mean, I would offer them. I have a little van and a table and some sterilizing equipment, and I was doing and I got maybe 3 takers. It did not work out. Surprised you got 3. That was pretty good.
Yeah, I need a little business plan though. It didn't really work so. So the last question that I have for the delightful Scott Siegel, and I also want to remind people one more time: A, that they can go to the website siegelpresents.com to track all the things that you and Barbara are doing, including Broadway by the Year. B, even though I make it sound like, oh, you can never get tickets, it's all sold out, there are tickets available for this Broadway by the Year on Monday night at Town Hall. Plus, you'll be doing one a few weeks later and a few weeks after that, too. So, you can go see it. Are there subscriptions still available? Can people still subscribe, or is that over?
Yes, you can still get subscriptions. And you can get those through Ticketmaster or by calling Town Hall and telling them you want a subscription. They'll direct you to the right person, who's Helen Morris, who works there, who handles subscriptions. And yes, you can still subscribe. And even after the first one, you can create a subscription for free and do that. And that's the best way to go because you get the best seats and you get a little bit of the savings as well. We always like to save a little money, don't we?
You're talking to a Jew. Of course we do. Yes. So my last question for you, Scott, is, second to last. First, penultimate question, what is your Hebrew name?
Menachem.
Menachem! How the hell did we get from Menachem to Scott? How does that work?
I don't know, because my Spanish name in Spanish class was Pepe. That didn't work.
Makes no sense at all. I don't know. But let's say that it's not from Man of La Mancha. Let's say that, aside from Man of La Mancha, what would be your favorite song of all time?
Oh, that I can't do. I can't do my favorite song. There are too many that I love. I love too many songs.
Okay.
And it changes all the time. There are things that I love in different contexts. So I couldn't go there. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I should have kept that one as the penultimate one and found out Menachem on this one. Well, anyway. Either way, it has been joyful talking music, talking theater, talking entrepreneurship with Scott Siegel. It just remains, I'll call you Menachem. Menachem. Is it Menachem or Menashe? Wait, Menachem. I just wish you, Pepe. You know Dave is going to call you that from now on. You realize that. When you see him at the theater, that's all he's ever going to call you. He's going to say, oh my God, let me show you my Pepe. He's right here. But Menachem Pepe, it's been delightful having you in the Daverhood. We wish you so much success and continued growth and marvelous music and good times with Broadway by the Year and all your concerts, and love, of course, to your darling wife, Barbara, as well. And shalom to you.
Shalom. I appreciate it, and I'll see you soon, I hope.
You got it. Bye-bye now. Shalom.
Bye-bye.
Scott Siegel in the Daverhood with me. Pepe. Yes, well, you know what? I've been sitting here for already like 45 minutes or so. I have to drain my own Pepe. So let me ease you out of this segment with the wonderful Scott Siegel. And remember, again, that website is siegelpresents.com, S-I-E-G-E-L, presents.com. Let us take it out with a little bit of actual Scott in this Broadway by the Year. Let me see if I have it there. Oh, I do. Oh, this is another show that he put on called Broadway Ballyhoo that he was doing at 54 Below, presenting some different people, different folks who have been on stage that he has given songs to do. So don't go away. We have more Dave's Gone By, including the Today, Yesterday quiz and that horrible poem that he reads from the end. Dave does his shtick. I do mine. But this is Scott Siegel, Pepe, doing his.
Brigadoon, they come to movie stars you thought were long dead now are framed beside your bed. No throne passed away. You might need it some rainy day. Dreams can come true again. And Mr. Honesty, confused, mock me with praise. Let me be used. Every my day, make me come through. I'll always be there, as frightened as you, to help us survive being alive. Through the dawn, daylight would flow around. She was blind, the Lord was blind. The King of He gave her sight. She opened her eyes, shimmers like fly with me. Fly, and the Lord fly with me. Happens to be the birthday of one of our performers, nice and win it.
A bit there of various performers at Pepe Siegel's his Broadway Ballyhoo, another concert series that he does. What a delight having Pepe, Menachem, and Scott Siegel on the 3-in-1. So we got 3 guests in one right here on Dave's Gone By. I'm Dave Lefkowitz, by the way. To find out more about Rabbi Saul Solomon, you can go to his website, shalomdammit.com, shalom, D-A-M-M-I-T, shalomdammit.com. He, too, is a theatrical performer, and you can see his show, Shalom Dammit, An Evening with Rabbi Saul Solomon, the longer, early version of it, at his website, shalomdammit.com. Also, episodes of his hilarious Long Island TV show that he did about a decade ago. They're all at that site, and we thank Rabbi Saul for being with us in the Daverhood. And a big thank you as well, of course, to Scott Siegel. A shout out to Barbara, and a thank you to, oh dear, who said, to Logan and Scott at the Keith Sherman office for setting that up. Well, it is, oh my God, it's a few minutes to noon already here on Dave's Gone By in the Daverhood. Are we done with the show? No, we're not. As the Rabbi Brown, well, yeah, also, Joyce is chuckling there when Scott was telling his story about being called Pepe in Spanish class. That's actually better even than mine, the story that I always tell, that there was a Spanish class I was in high school where there were 3 Davids in class. So one got to be called David, okay, fine. And then there was a Diego, and well, I became Jose. How that happens, where Jose came from, no idea, but true story. There's something happens in foreign language classes that's just inexplicable. But anywho, let's make sure I cover everything that has to be done on the rest of the show. Well, it was just our doggy is kind of getting in the mix here. He's not going to eat that. He'll be okay. So he's walking on the tinsel. Let's do our quiz, our yesterday quiz, which is something that we've had fun. We didn't have time to do it a couple of weeks ago, but we're bringing it back. And I hope Cynthia and Jeff are still with us. I know they tuned in a while ago, and we love to have them. They're my cousins, actually, who tune in. Oh, not only is she here, she was just talking about our Spanish teacher. I took Spanish for several years, so I had several. I'm not sure I really want to name, because they're all still alive. I still see one locally coming to the library, but there were a few. I'm not going to say those on the air, but I liked most all of my Spanish teachers. They were all really fun. Senora DeMarco was one of them. She's long gone, so I can certainly say her name. Anyway, Cynthia and Jeff, you are obviously here, which means that we can do our yesterday quiz, which is a trivia quiz. It's a simple thing. This is February 22nd, 2020, but we've had previous February 22nds, of course. We're going to ask you questions based on what happened over the years, over the centuries, on this date in history. You don't win anything, but you get to play against Cynthia and Jeff, who always chime in and try to be the first with their answers. Yep, we know there's an answer. I'll give you the answers once we do the quiz, but remember, no fair wikiing or Googling. It's trivia. Try to get these answers on your own. And by the way, the answer to your question, Cynthia, is yes. He was one of my, if not my favorite Spanish teacher when I was in high school. And I met him many years later. He was still great. And I hope he's still with us. That would be really terrific, too. Anyway, if you are all ready for our yesterday quiz, which begins thusly. In 1879, yesterday, so a long time ago, 1879, in Utica, New York, the first 5 and dime store opened. It failed, but the same entrepreneur opened another 5 and dime in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which flourished, and soon enough the chain spread all over the country. Name the founder of the 5 and dime, who then brought his brother in to co-run this huge retail chain. So that is the question, the first question in our yesterday quiz. Okay, this was the opening date of the first iteration of this store. Okay, who founded it? The original 5 and dime, and then a whole bunch right after it. Dum, 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 dum. Oh wow, we have an answer already. Did you guys get it? Did Cynthia and Jeff get it right? And the answer is Frank Wingfield Woolworth, better known as FW to his pals. And that is correct, by the way, Cynthia and Jeff, well done. The store went out in 1997. There's no more Woolworths. I thought it was just gone. But what happened was, by then the company was concentrating mostly on sporting goods, and that became Foot Locker. I had no idea that Woolworth was eventually morphed, into Foot Locker. But well done. Off to a good start, Cynthia and Jeff. Let's see how you all are doing against them. Remember, you can type in the message right here on Facebook to me and try and beat Cynthia and Jeff to the buzzer. Our next question yesterday, 1900, turn of the previous century. Born today in Spain, this film director scandalized viewers with his early avant-garde films like Un Chien Andalou, and tweaked society with such later works as Belle de Jour and The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie. Name him. Oh, no, I should hold this up. Here's the question. Born today in 1900, film director, started with some provocative works, short films, then went on to more narrative stuff, and is best known for such movies as Belle de Jour and The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie. Who are we talking about? What director was it? Okay, give you a bit more of a hint. He directed not only in Spain, but in France and Mexico. In fact, he did a documentary called Las Urdes about the Mexican poor. And one of his other famous films is called Los Olvidades, or Olvidados, which is about poor and the forgotten ones.
Olvidades means forgetting.
Yeah, there's poor Mexican street kids and violent street kids. Very good movie. I haven't seen it in years. Okay, we have an answer to a couple of answers from Cynthia and Jeff. Are they correct? Well, we had answers of Otto Preminger, or was it Charlie Chaplin? But no, the answer was the great Louis Buñuel. Louis Buñuel, who started with Un Chien Andalou, which he co-did with Salvador Dali, actually. And then he did another avant-garde film called L'Âge d'Or, and went on to all different types of movies after that. A little bit of trivia here. For the past several years, Stephen Sondheim and playwright David Ives were collaborating on a musical based on the Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie and The Exterminating Angel, both of them Buñuel films, but apparently nothing has come of it, and it's not going to turn into anything, alas. Anyway, okay, so 1 for 1 for Cynthia and Jeff. Moving on. I'll bet Scott Siegel would have gotten that one as a film student. Here we go, 1934. Speaking of movies, released today is this classic romantic road trip comedy featuring Clark Gable as a journalist and Claudette Colbert as an heiress meeting cute on a Greyhound bus. Name the film and its director. So, okay, we go to the year 1934. Oh, I keep holding up the wrong thing. No, I need my thinking visual. There it is. 1934, released today from Hollywood, classic romantic road trip comedy with Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert as mismatched but made for each other, and they meet on a Greyhound bus. What is the name of the movie and who directed it? I'll wait another moment or two while you guys think of who it might have been. If you want to take a stab. And it was not Otto Preminger. I'll give you that much. I will give you a hint that if it's a director you're thinking of, it's probably him. Oh, we have an answer. We have an answer. We know there's an answer. Well done, Cynthia and Jeff. The answer is It Happened One Night, directed by Frank Capra, who of course is better known for Sullivan's Travels and It's a Wonderful Life. The film, by the way, It Happened One Night, won Oscars for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay, and Gable and Colbert both won Actor and Actress that year. Hey, speaking of the Academy Awards, our next question for our Today Yesterday quiz moves us to 1958. Alec Guinness and director David Lean both won statues for this Best Picture wartime movie, which Today Yesterday took home Golden Globe Awards for the same three things. The movie, Alec Guinness and David Lean. What was the name of the film? Okay, so kind of convoluted questioning of that, but it was 1958 that the Golden Globe Awards were given on this date, February 22nd, and the award went to three people who had also won the Oscars on this. And well, it was the film, and it was the director, David Lean, and the actor, Alec Guinness. What was the movie? Hum-de-dum-de-dum-de-dum. Dum-de-dum. I should hold this up because it seems to spark the answers and the creativity of it. Okay, I need a full answer. I know you're thinking of the answer, Cynthia and Jeff. You're on the right track. There we go. We have our answer. It was indeed The Bridge on the River Kwai. What's kind of interesting about the film, which, David Lean, he did Dr. Zhivago, Lawrence of Arabia, major director who worked with expansive epic pictures. But Bridge on the River Kwai was based on a novel, a French novel by Pierre Boulez. He won the Oscar, even though he didn't write the screenplay. He just wrote the book on which the screenplay was based. Problem was, the two different people who wrote the screenplay were blacklisted. So the Oscars should have gone to them, and instead it went to the original novel author, who, by the way, also wrote a book called Planet of the Apes. So go figure. Anyway, moving on to our next quiz question, or today, yesterday question, and you guys are doing really, really well. More movies, still more movies. Today, this actress of Hollywood royalty was born. Now, she gained fame as a child, but also had hit films as a grown-up, including such movies as Boys on the Side, Riding in Cars with Boys, and The Wedding Singer. Name the actress. Who could this actress be? In our today, yesterday question. Is it potato? No, it's not potato. I'll read the question again. Again, born on this date, today, yesterday, in 1975, to Hollywood royalty, this actress had a hit film as a kid, but then grew up to be in Boys on the Side, Riding in Cars with Boys, and The Wedding Singer. And here's a little hint for you. She was once briefly married to goofy talk show host Tom Green. And oh, we have an answer. Da, 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 da. Well done. It was Drew Barrymore, who made kind of a splash in E.T. when she was first a child. I confused. I thought she was the girl in Poltergeist, but that was somebody else. She was in E.T. And then, of course, she was a child of the Grand Barrymore acting family. Her mom is Jade Barrymore. Her father was John Barrymore Jr., and so forth. Anyway, on to our next question. Moving away, finally, from movies, we go to 1980. The year, 1980. The date, February 22nd. The place, Lake Placid, New York. The man, Mike Eruzione. What was so special about him? So I'll say that again. This date, 1980, location, Lake Placid, New York, and a fellow named Mike Eruzione. Might ring a bell. What made this day really special and made him special? Okay. Let's see, we're getting some, a couple of people are tuning in or chiming in. We've got good. Put it all together. I'm getting this from, oh my God, all my relatives are chiming in. I've got cousin Mark and Cynthia and Jeff. There we go. Well done. Oh, they're working like a champion tag team here. They both got it at the same time. It was the 1980 Winter Olympics in Lake Placid. Wait, let me give the countdown. Yeah, and Mike Eruzione scored the winning goal when the USA beat Russia 4-3 and ended up taking the gold medal in hockey. And it was called, do you remember? It was the, since you've got this all right and you know who it was and you know what happened. Well, what's the nickname for what happened that day on February 22nd, 1980? You remember, it was 40 years ago. Oh my God, 4 decades. I remember it like yesterday. They called it the, think Rabbi Saul Solomon. Think Jewish, think religion. That was it. Well done. It was the Miracle on Ice. Bravo. Bravo to everyone who's playing our today, yesterday quiz. Got a couple more questions for you. We moved today, yesterday. In fact, opening today on Broadway and closing on the same day on Broadway, 1983, at the Eugene O'Neill Theater, was one of the most famous flops of all time. It's not Dance of the Vampires. There's an even bigger flop than that. Penned by our friend of the Daverhood, Arthur Bicknell. This comedy was set in a lodge on a stormy night, with the guests playing a murder mystery game, but they start getting murdered themselves. Name the show. Right there. So it's a Broadway question. I know people dread when I move to Broadway, because that's my purview. But people, we have an answer? Cousin Mark, anybody else, do you want to chime in with an answer? Or do you want to echo what Cynthia has posted? Let us know. I'm going to give the little countdown here. Oh, and I'll read the question one more time. Opening and closing today in 1983 at Broadway's Eugene O'Neill Theater, a monster flop, penned by, and he was on the show and he talked about it very openly and very playfully, a guy named Arthur Bicknell. It was set in a lodge on a stormy night and everybody in it was being killed that night. What was the name of the show? Well, it was full of murder and the critics murdered it. It was the one, the only Moose Murders. I never got to see it, but I did have a playbill for it. I wish I still did. But Moose Murders, yep, that show. It's become a meme almost for bad Broadway, terrible, so bad it's beyond bad theater. And as a matter of fact, Moose Murders had trouble even before it opened. Eve Arden was supposed to star in it, but she couldn't remember her lines, so Holland Taylor got the lead role instead. Anyway, got a couple more questions in our Today Yesterday quiz. 1996 is the year. Today Yesterday, Scottish scientists make a big announcement about a 6-month-old. What was it, and why was it important? On this date, February 22nd, 1996, scientists in Scotland had a big announcement to make about a 6-month-old. What was it? Why, in my best Jerry Seinfeld was, why was it important? Okay. Ooh. Ooh, man, God, you guys are firing on all burners today. Hold on, I gotta pick this up. But well done indeed to Cynthia and Jeff. And what was so important about, they got it right here. Dolly the sheep.
She was a clone.
That's right. Joyce got it. It was the first. What was it? It was the first clone from an adult cell. First time ever. Dolly actually had been born 6 months earlier in July of 1996, and then, well, they announced her on February 20. Maybe it was February 22nd, 1997, because she was born in July of 96. I'm sorry, that's my mistake there. And she ended up living until February 14th. She died on Valentine's Day, 2003. So that's pretty good. I'm not sure how long sheep live, normal non-cloney sheep live, but that's almost like a pretty good lifespan for a lamb whose fleece was white as test tubes in snow. So neat. We have one more question to close out our Today Yesterday quiz on Dave's Gone By, today, February 22nd. Are you all ready? I do believe you are. Here we go. We go back to the movies. 2009. At the 81st Academy Awards, this film, directed by Danny Boyle, won Best Picture. It was based on the novel Q&A by Vikas Swarup. I'll say that again. It was based on the novel Q&A by Vikas Swarup about a poor boy from Bombay. Name the movie. Well done. We'll wait for the answer from Cynthia and Jeff or Cousin Mark or anybody else who wants to type in and chime in. What is the name of that film directed by Danny Boyle? Question time. And again, it was based on a book called Q&A, all about a poor boy from Bombay. Okay, we have an answer, but it might just be a partial answer. Anybody else want to chime in? Oh, we have a, there we go. There we go. We got a couple of different people, all of them related to me by blood somehow. Here we go. And the answer indeed is Slumdog Millionaire, the film which won Best, I remember that, won Best Picture at the 81st Academy Awards back in 2009. Well done, folks. Well, I mean, I think, well, you guys got like, I think everybody was like 7 of 9 on this Today, Yesterday quiz. And if we've ever seen 7 of 9 on Star Trek, that's not a bad thing to be. But yeah, well done, Cousin Cynthia and Mark. And well done to all of you who enjoyed or took part in our Today, Yesterday quiz today on Dave's Gone By, where it is 12:15 Eastern Time in the Daverhood. I don't think I broke for, to remind you that you're watching Dave's Gone By, that this is our 734th episode. We've been calling it Great Scott, in honor of our guest, Scott Siegel. You can find our older episodes at davesgoneby.com. They're all archived there for free, including our very first ones from 2002 that are just audio and only an hour long, all the way up through the videos we've been doing on Facebook for the past two or 3 years now. We've also been posting our shows as audio podcasts on castbox.fm and on YouTube, both video, well, YouTube is for video, and then we've been putting them on archive.org too. So lots and lots of ways to hear and watch episodes of Dave's Gone By with me, Dave Lefkowitz, my darling and adorable wife, Joyce. We're not quite done with the show because, oh gosh, we do still have our Colorado Limerick of the Damned to do. But before we do that, I want to thank one more time Logan and who was it? It was it was from the Keith Sherman office, Logan and Scott, forgive me, for setting up the interview with our new friend of the Daverhood, Pepe Siegel, who's doing Broadway by the Year this Monday night at Town Hall. Pepe is now an official friend of the Daverhood. Those are people who have been on this program in the past few months, in the past few years. Since we started, we feel that people who have been on the program are kind of like friends. They're family. And we like to keep tabs on them and let you know what they're doing, what they've been up to in this segment, Friends of the Daverhood. Because, you know, it makes us proud. We feel like, hey, we have these great people on the show and they're promoting something. What are they doing now? What great stuff are they doing since they've appeared in the Daverhood? For example, playing from from yesterday through the middle of March, there's a show at the Royal Family Performing Arts Center off Broadway called Women on Fire, which is, you know, kind of a nice hey, who doesn't like hot women? But it's called Women on Fire, and the rotating cast will include our friends Julie Holston and Katie Huffman. So you're probably going to want to go see that. Want to let you know that tonight you can see Raquel Sion. Remember how much fun she was in the Daverhood talking about her David Bowie show, Me and Mr. Jones? She'll be doing it tonight at Pangea, Raquel Sion. Now through the 23rd, so I think that's just through tomorrow, Alan Lewis Rickman is directing forgive me. Alan Lewis Rickman is playing Mr. Bauman in the Encore's Mac and Mabel revival at City Center. So that's a pretty good gig too. And a very underrated Jerry Herman show. Playing from today through Monday, Katie Huffman, well, she's all over the place. She is directing and singing with some other folks in Jerry Herman, You I Like, at the 92nd Street Y. Of course, Jerry Herman died a few weeks ago, so the tributes are popping up all over the place. You're definitely gonna want to see Katie Huffman in Jerry Herman, You I Like, from tonight, tomorrow, and Monday. If you happen to be in Hollywood, go see Willard Manis's play. It's called Show Me a Hero, being done at the Brick House Theater from tomorrow through March 29th. And then also happening tomorrow, oh boy, check this out. It's the 25th anniversary party for Cabaret Scenes magazine, taking place at the Green Room 42. And it's like an alumni festival of people who have been on Dave's Gone By. So check all the people who are going to be part of this, including Jamie DeRoy, Kenny Fuller, Karen Mason, Anita Gillette, Eric Comstock, Sidney Meyer, Mark Nadler, Jay Rogers, and Steve Ross. All of them friends of the Daverhood, all of them on that stage for this 25th anniversary Cabaret Scenes party that is happening at Green Room 42 on tomorrow night. On Monday night, Phoebe Legere is at a gala at the Players Club. It's going to be honoring the co-author of the musical Hair, James Rado. Also Monday night, Julie Halston is hosting a benefit called Broadway Belts at the Edison Ballroom. And of course, Monday night, we're really pushing this Broadway by the Year at Town Hall, featuring our friend Tova Feldschuh and organized by Scott Siegel. That is at Town Hall. On Tuesday and then running through mid-June, oh boy, oh my goodness, guess what it is, babe? It's an Austin Pendleton alert. The ubiquitous Austin Pendleton, and what a great guest he was. He is appearing on Broadway in a new play by Tracy Letts called The Minutes.
Broadway in 47.
Just walking down Broadway. It is at the Court Theater on West 48th Street. On February 26th, I think that's Wednesday, Penny Arcade is doing her solo show, Notes from the Underground, at Pangea.
I think it's called Give Me a Ticket for a Prize.
Could be. Then on Thursday, Make America Laugh and Sing Again.
Oh, I like that.
It's a benefit also at Pangea, featuring our friends Michael Lydon and Ellie Mandel. Oh, I think it's on the east side. You know, I should put the addresses down on that. Well, Pangea has a website, so everybody go. You're right, I should spell it Pangea. Pangea. Okay, which is not some horrible disease of the pancreas. No, it's Pangea, the club. I don't know what I'm saying. Thomas G. Waits is directing. No, he's in a play called Mr. Toole at 59 E59 theaters. That is going to be running from the 28th through the middle of March.
Toole called Mr. Toole?
Well, it's Toole.
Oh, like O'Toole. Okay.
Yeah, and it's based on the life of John Kennedy Toole, who wrote a Confederacy of Dunces.
Oh.
After I get past the 3-hour mark, I can't even talk anymore.
Words are hard, David. Big words are hard.
Richard Eyre. You have one more week to watch My Name is Lucy Barton on Broadway at the Samuel J. Friedman Theater. Anne Harada is in the musical Emoji Land. That is at the Duke on 42nd Street, running through early March. Raymond Bohur is in Chicago playing Amos at the Ambassador Theater. Katsura Sunshine is in Sunshine at Rakugo at New World Stages now through the late April. Little Shop of Horrors that keeps getting extended off-Broadway at New World Stages and features music by Alan Menken, our friend of the Daverhood. Hadestown, of course, features our Tony-winning friend Andre DeShields. That is at the Walter Kerr. At the Gerald Schoenfeld Theater, Come From Away, which is co-written by Irene Sankoff and David Hine. Go see that wonderful musical. Moulin Rouge has Danny Burston in it at the Hirschfeld Theater. And, of course, Hamilton has Daniel Breaker as Aaron Burr at the Richard Rogers Theater. I'm so thrilled because it makes this segment interesting, having a dog on camera while I'm doing it. J.O. Sanders is in the Broadway show, Girl from the North Country, at the Belasco Theater. Jim Caruso's cast party every Monday night at Birdland. And Dr. Demento still doing new Dr. Demento shows and archiving the old ones at drdemento.com. Emin Seplow is the editor and founder of the website stagebuggy.com. Go watch High Drama, the theater review show with Eva Heineman, and the other theater review show, Two on the Aisle, with Charlie Gross and Leslie Hoban Blake, both of them on Manhattan Neighborhood Network TV. And those, my friends, shout out to Bob Cudmore, bobcudmore.com. The Friends of the Daverhood. Woo! Man, got him in all on one Haydn composition. One 7-minute Haydn. Yeah. Well, otherwise I have to squirrel myself away and play Haydn Go Seek. Little comedy right there. Well, speaking of very, very, very little comedy, we have one last item to do for you.
Oh my God, David.
On this Saturday morning, on Dave's Gone By. It's not loading up the music. I don't know why. Dear, oh dear. Let's see if I can find it. Where?
I'm gonna go get food.
Yeah. Oh, can I may have to do this without the intro music, which is, here it is. It is, of course, our Colorado Limerick of the Damned, where every week I do a poem, a rather rude, crude, and lewd poem about a place in Colorado, a town, a city, a big, everything from the big cities like Denver to the tiniest little municipalities with barely even a post office and a gas station. Once a week, we read one of these horrible, disgusting, evil poems. And today, we're actually going to a place in Colorado called Lay. Yep, L-A-Y, Lay, Colorado. You do not want to miss our Colorado Limerick of the Damned.
You're the poetry man.
A limerick is a comic verse of 5 lines, in which lines 1, 2, and 5 will end with words that rhyme. And likewise, verses 3 and 4 also end with words that rhyme. So this is a limerick.
Rocky Mountain,
The dulcet tones of Christine Lavin there singing Colorado, Rado, 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 as we do our Colorado Limerick of the Damned. And yes, I never heard of it, but Lay started as a military camp in northwestern Colorado, founded by a colonel, named for him, in fact, whose sweetheart, no, it wasn't named for him, it was named for his sweetheart, Miss Lay. He was a lucky man. And then there was a creek and a post office, and then what happened was a big cattle rancher came to Lake, Colorado, and made it kind of a major center of ranching. Ora Haley was that guy's name. And then in the early 1900s, a motor company opened there too. But from the middle, like from the 1950s and 60s on, the town stopped expanding and then started contracting. And really, it's now basically a ghost town along Highway 40 in Moffat County. But we're going to restore Lay back to its glory days by doing a short poem about it. Shorter than usual, in fact. Our Colorado Limerick of the Damned for Lay. There once was a small town named Lay. What else could I possibly say? That's our Colorado Limerick of the Damned for today, Saturday, February 22nd, 2020, here on Dave's Gone By. Remember that you can see our archives at davesgoneby.com. You can also contact me, either by messaging me on our Facebook page or by emailing me, davesgoneby@aol.com, davesgoneby@aol.com. I have a Twitter feed. It's Radio Dave 2, Radio Dave and the number 2. So all these different ways of, I don't have an Instagram thing up yet. I really should. I'll get that going. But really, Facebook is the best way, as is our website. Our Facebook page, Dave's Gone By, as you know. But the main thing that you've got to do is get people watching and liking the show on Facebook, whether they're already, liking and following us or just tuning in for the first time. We need more viewers. We need more people who are getting sucked into the Daverhood on Saturday mornings between 9 and noon or thereabouts for all the cool, crazy stuff that we do. So we'll have this episode hopefully archived within a day or two. It'll be automatically archived on our Facebook page. So for people who might be interested, if they love theater, if they love musicals, if they love cabaret, they're going to want to hear Rabbi Saul Solomon's interview with Pepe Siegel earlier in the program. That's okay. If you missed it, or if you want to hear it again, or play it for someone after the show's over, give it a couple of minutes. It'll save right on our Facebook page, or wait a day or two. We'll have it at davesgoneby.com, ready to listen to there, whatever you please. What else do I want to, anything else I want to mention? Anything else that needs saying? We should have a new episode next Saturday. I'm still deciding because I wasn't sure if I was going to be in town or going out of town for the day. But it looks like we'll be doing a show. I just don't know who will be on it. I'll certainly be on. I can promise you I will be on it. So tune in next Saturday, February 29th. And then coming up on March 14th, this is going to be really, really cool. I'm going to have, I think this is the first time ever, my old boss on Dave's Gone By. I mean, it's not really true, because when I was at the radio station on Long Island, and I was doing like the New Year's specials, sometimes I'd have the programming director there on the show, and he was technically my boss. But no, this is different. This was my boss at Playbill. He's a writer, and he is now a lecturer on theater. Really good guy, too. A fellow named Robert Viagas. And he was one of the, even before I got to Playbill.com and started writing for them and then running the place, Robert was one of the people who really was the architect by what has become, Playbill.com, the website of American theater news. We've been, we've actually stayed friends after all these years, despite having some interesting times happening at that place and in other places too. So it's going to be great to have Robert on the show. That's happening in 3 weeks. It's going to be on March 14th. And then we have 1 or 2 guests that are in the pipeline, but I can't say for sure yet, unfortunately. Best way to check is by checking the website, davesgoneby.com, checking the Facebook page. We let you know as soon as we're sure what's going to be happening on upcoming shows. So it just remains for me to thank one more time the delightful Pepe Menachem Siegel. Go on Monday night to Town Hall and see Broadway by the Year. I was at the last one that they did a couple of months ago, and it was really, really a terrific night. And it was, you learn stuff. It was casual, it was calm, but also kind of high level. The talent there was just superb. The songs were good because they're Broadway songs. I mean, it was really just, you can't lose. And so go see it. And it's this 20th anniversary edition now. So they're going to be doing the first 5 years from 2000 to 2004, I guess, of shows that opened like Avenue Q and producers during that period. It's at Town Hall. Go to Siegel Presents, right? Is that the thing? Siegel, Siegel, Presents.com for more information about all the stuff that Scott and Barbara are doing, or just go right to the Town Hall box office and get yourself tickets for Monday night. Go see it. And I should see you a week from now, February 29th, for the 735th edition of Dave's Gone By. It just remains one more time to thank my darling and adorable and wonderful wife, Joyce, for her help in the design of this episode, and also helping me out with some of the noises and the laughs during Greeley Crimes and Old Times. Remains for me to wish you a happy end of President's Week, to wish you, hold on, I always forget to do this. There's our theme. And to thank all of you for tuning in, for playing along on our Today Yesterday quiz, for enjoying the various segments that we have, for the letters and messages that you sent both during the show and after the show's over during the week. It's all meaningful. It all makes this show so much more fun and worthwhile for me to do. So with that, I'm going to wish you a terrific mid-February, and tomorrow, happy birthday, Dad. Happy birthday, Dad. And gone by.
Dave's gone by. Dave's gone by. There goes the day. Dave's gone by. There goes the day.
As I said, gone by.